Chapter 1: The $1,000,000 Bid. Celeste Monroe realized she had made a catastrophic mistake. The moment the auctioneer smiled at her she was already sold. Not sold, she corrected herself, fingers tightening around the stem of untouched champagne. Offered. Donated. Packaged for charity in a silk black dress and borrowed diamonds, with a dinner date listed in gold script beneath her name, as if humiliation became elegant when printed on expensive cardstock. Across the sterling grand ballroom, 300 of New York's wealthiest predators watched her with polite hunger. The lights were too bright, the music too soft, the air too warm from lilies, perfume, money, and secrets. Celeste stood at the side of the stage while the previous item, a private weekend at a Napa estate, closed for $80,000. Applause moved through the room like rain against glass. Gentle, civilized, false. Her father needed $2 million by Friday. $1 million would keep the banks from circling long enough for Monroe Industries to breathe. $1 million would pay the bridge loan, delay the board's panic, and keep her father from finding out how many calls Celeste had made in the last 48 hours to men who used to beg for his business, and now would not return hers. $1 million would not save them, but it would buy time. She hated that word tonight. Buy. Miss Monroe. The auction coordinator touched her elbow. The woman was polished down to the smallest detail, silver hair pinned into a knot, headset tucked behind one ear, expression trained to mistake desperation for participation. Celeste lifted her chin. "I'm ready." She was not. Her phone buzzed inside her clutch for the 6th time. She did not need to look to know who it was. Milton Graves, her father's business partner, had a gift for choosing moments when she was already bleeding. She looked anyway. "You should have accepted my offer, Celeste. Public embarrassment is so hard to survive." Her stomach turned cold. Then another message appeared. "Smile pretty. The room loves a Monroe girl on her knees." For one suspended second, the ballroom blurred. Not fear, fury. It came quick and clean, slicing through the shame that had been crawling over her skin all evening. Milton thought he had cornered her. The banks thought they could starve her out. Half the men in this room thought a woman in need became an opportunity with legs. Fine. Let them look. Celeste Monroe had not inherited her mother's softness. She had inherited her father's refusal to die quietly. She deleted the message, slid her phone back into her clutch, and stepped onto the stage. The room turned toward her in one luxurious, glittering wave. The auctioneer gave her a practiced smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, our next offering is one of tonight's most anticipated lots. A private dinner with Celeste Monroe, Director of Philanthropic Partnerships at Monroe Industries, patron of the arts, and one of Manhattan's most admired young women." Admired? Celeste nearly laughed. She was 27, exhausted, and standing under a chandelier large enough to crush a family legacy flat. She had spent the last 6 months learning how admiration vanished when debt became public. People admired you until they could smell weakness. Then they called it concern and leaned closer. The auctioneer continued. "Dinner will be arranged at a mutually agreed upon Michelin-starred restaurant in Manhattan, with all proceeds benefiting the Sterling Children's Medical Fund." Applause. Celeste smiled because every camera in the room demanded it. She had agreed to this because no one could sneer at charity without revealing themselves. Because rich men would pay obscene sums for access if the access came draped in a good cause. Because her father had once told her Monroe women never begged, they negotiated from whatever ground they had left. Tonight, the ground was a stage. We'll begin the bidding at $10,000. A paddle lifted near the front. 10,000. Thank you, Mr. Vale. Do I hear 20? Another paddle. 20, 30. 50, called a voice from the left. The auctioneer brightened. 50,000. Excellent. Heat crawled up Celeste's neck, but her smile did not move. She kept her gaze above the crowd, unfocused on the far wall, where a mural of angels floated over a city built by robber barons and dressed up by descendants who called themselves patrons. 75. 100. A low murmur moved through the ballroom. Celeste's pulse kicked. 100,000 was respectable. Better than respectable. It was enough that no one could call this a failure in the morning gossip columns. She could exit with dignity, deposit the check, pretend this had been about charity and not survival. 100,000, the auctioneer said. Do I hear 125? 150, said Milton Graves. Celeste's smile almost cracked. He sat at table 12 in a navy tuxedo, silver hair combed back, his handsome face arranged into something paternal for the people around him. He lifted his paddle without looking at her. As if he were bidding on a painting he planned to hang in a room no one used. Her father's partner, her father's oldest friend, the man who had promised to help stabilize Monroe Industries while her father recovered from surgery. The man whose texts were still burning through her clutch. The room whispered. Celeste looked at him then directly. His eyes met hers. He smiled. You should have accepted my offer. Her hand tightened at her side. The auctioneer's voice lifted. 150,000 from Mr. Graves. Do I hear 200? Silence stretched. Milton's smile widened by half an inch. This was not charity. This was a warning staged in public. If Milton won, he would own the story by morning. Not Celeste Monroe secures major donation, but desperate heiress dines with father's partner amid rumors of corporate collapse. He would make it look benevolent, protective. I'm helping Robert's girl through a difficult time. Her father would see it. The board would see it. The banks would see weakness wrapped in Milton's hand. 200,000, someone said. Celeste's gaze snapped to the back of the ballroom. She had not noticed the man standing in the shadowed archway near the private bar. That was impossible, because he was the kind of man a room noticed even when he was still. Tall, black tuxedo. No paddle raised, one hand in his pocket. His hair was dark, his face severe, his expression carved from the sort of calm that made other men reach for weapons they did not have. He was not handsome in the harmless way that invited smiles. He was beautiful like a locked door in a burning house. Adrian Wolfe. Celeste knew him the way everyone in Manhattan knew him. Billionaire, corporate executioner, founder of Wolfe Capital. 35 years old and rumored to have dismantled his first hostile board before he was old enough to rent a car. He bought distressed companies, stripped corrupt leadership, and left survivors grateful or ruined depending on whether they had lied to him. He did not attend charity auctions unless something inside them interested him. He was looking at Celeste as if he had found it. The room quieted with a different kind of attention. Milton's jaw flickered. The auctioneer recovered first. 200,000 from Mr. Wolfe. Do I hear 250? Milton lifted his paddle. 250. 500, Adrian said. The silence hit hard. A champagne flute clinked somewhere near the front. Celeste's lungs forgot their purpose. The auctioneer blinked. 500,000. Mr. Wolfe bids $500,000 for dinner with Miss Monroe. Adrian did not move. He did not smile. He simply watched Celeste with those winter-dark eyes, and she felt, absurdly, as if he had crossed the room without taking a step. Milton laughed lightly, but it came out thin. 600. 1 million, Adrian said. This time, no one breathed. Celeste felt the bid land under her ribs. $1 million. For dinner? No, not for dinner. No intelligent man paid $1 million for a dinner he could request with a phone call and a reservation. Adrian Wolfe could buy entire restaurant groups if he disliked the table, which meant this was not about wanting her. This was about needing something. The auctioneer's face shone with professional ecstasy. $1 million from Mr. Wolfe. Milton turned in his chair. His smile had vanished. Adrian's gaze left Celeste for the first time and moved to him. Nothing changed in his expression, but the air did. The room seemed to understand, collectively and without instruction, that a polite social event had become a battlefield. Mr. Graves, the auctioneer asked carefully, would you like to continue? Milton's fingers tightened around his paddle. Celeste wanted him to bid, wanted him exposed, wanted everyone in the room to see the shape of whatever game he was playing. But Milton was not stupid. He set the paddle down. Adrian's gaze returned to Celeste. The auctioneer lifted the gavel. 1 million going once. Celeste's heartbeat pounded in her throat. Going twice. Adrian Wolfe did not look triumphant. If anything, he looked angry. Sold to Mr. Adrian Wolfe for $1 million. The gavel struck. Applause detonated. Celeste stood in the middle of it, smiling like a woman saved, while every instinct she had screamed that she had just stepped into deeper danger. Afterward, people descended on her, with congratulations sharp enough to draw blood. How generous of Mr. Wolfe. What an extraordinary donation. You must be thrilled. Your father will be so proud. Celeste accepted each comment with the facial control of a diplomat signing a treaty under duress. She let women kiss the air beside her cheeks. She let men squeeze her hand a shade too long. She let the sterling foundation chair pose her beneath the chandelier while a photographer captured her beside the auctioneer and an oversized ceremonial card bearing the number 1 million. Adrian did not join the photograph. She kept finding him in the room anyway, near the bar, beside a marble column, speaking briefly to a man in a charcoal suit who looked less like an assistant and more like the reason no one tried to approach Adrian without permission. Everywhere Adrian stood, space opened around him. People wanted his money, his favor, his attention. None seemed eager to hold it once they had it. By the time Celeste escaped to the terrace, her cheeks ached from smiling. Cold spring air struck her skin. She welcomed it. The Sterling Grand's terrace overlooked Fifth Avenue, the city glittering below in hard diamonds of traffic and glass. The noise of the ballroom dulled behind the closed French doors. For the first time in hours, she could hear herself think. $1 million. Her father could not know how close they were to collapse. Not fully. His doctors had been firm. No stress, no board calls, no late-night financial briefings from a hospital bed. So Celeste had lied with a daughter's smile and a director's spreadsheet. Everything is being handled. Rest. Please, Dad, just rest. She gripped the stone balustrade. The cold bit into her palms. Champagne. The voice behind her was not Adrian's. Celeste turned. Milton Graves stepped onto the terrace carrying 2 glasses, his posture relaxed now that no cameras were aimed their way. In the ballroom, he looked like old money and mentorship. Out here, beneath the blue-black sky, the charm thinned. "No," Celeste said. He smiled. "You always were dramatic. And you always mistook contempt for theatrics." His smile cooled. "Careful. There are cameras inside. I can go find one if you'd prefer to continue this conversation where people can admire your concern." Milton set 1 glass on the ledge. "You think tonight changed anything?" "I think it raised $1 million. For charity, not for Monroe Industries." He took a sip from his own glass. "Unless you plan to ask Wolf for more than dinner." Celeste's skin tightened. "Finish that sentence carefully." He gave a soft laugh. "Don't be vulgar, Celeste. I'm talking about investment." "No, you're talking about leverage." "I'm talking about reality. Your father built a company on handshakes and sentiment. The market does not reward sentiment. My father trusted you. And that was his mistake." The words hit with such clean cruelty that, for a moment, the city seemed to go silent. There it was, not even hidden now. Celeste forced herself not to step back. "What did you do?" Milton tilted his head. "I protected myself." "What did you do?" "You don't have the stomach for the answer." "You have no idea what I have the stomach for." His eyes moved over her, not with desire but assessment. Like she was a locked file he had decided was not worth decrypting. "Your father is sick. The company is over-leveraged. The board is frightened. By next week, Monroe Industries will require restructuring. By you. By someone competent." Rage moved through her, hot enough to steady her hands. "You tried to bid on me tonight. I tried to spare you embarrassment. No, you tried to put your hand around my throat in front of 300 people and call it a rescue." His expression shifted, only slightly, but she saw it. The irritation of a man whose polished mask had been named too accurately. "You should consider what happens when Wolf loses interest," Milton said. "Men like him don't pay $1 million because they're sentimental." "I'm aware." "Are you? Because he's not a white knight, Celeste. He's a wolf with excellent tailoring. Then maybe you shouldn't have bled in front of him." Milton's smile vanished. The terrace door opened. The air changed before Celeste looked. Adrian Wolf stood in the doorway, one hand resting on the brass handle, his gaze fixed not on Celeste, but on Milton. He had removed nothing from his formal armor, not the jacket, not the tie, not the cold, lethal composure. Yet there was something different about him up close, more contained, more dangerous, as if the distance of the ballroom had been a courtesy. "Graves," Adrian said. "One word." Milton recovered, but not fully. "Wolf, I was congratulating Miss Monroe." "No, you were." Celeste's breath caught. Milton's eyes sharpened. "This is a private conversation." "Then you should have chosen a private terrace." "It's all right," Celeste said, though nothing was. Adrian looked at her. The force of his attention landed with unnerving precision. Not possessive, not entitled, worse, focused, as if he could see the stress fracture beneath every composed line of her body. "Is it?" he asked. 2 words, quiet and clean. Not, do you need help? Not, should I remove him? Not the performance of a man stepping in to rescue a woman for the pleasure of being seen doing it. Is it? Her choice. The distinction irritated her because it mattered. D. Celeste lifted her chin. Mr. Graves was leaving. Milton gave a small, humorless smile. Was I? Adrian did not look away from Celeste. Were you? A strange, sharp thrill moved through her. Not because Adrian had taken control, because he had offered it back. Celeste turned to Milton. Yes. Milton's face hardened. For 1 second, she saw the man beneath the elegant suit, the one who sent messages about knees, the one who had looked at her father's illness and seen an opening, the one who had mistaken her exhaustion for weakness. Then the mask returned. Enjoy dinner, he said, both of you. He walked past Adrian without touching him. Adrian waited until the terrace door closed behind him. Celeste expected him to speak first. Men like Adrian Wolfe always did. They filled silence with directives and called it confidence. He said nothing. It made the terrace feel smaller. Celeste turned back to the city. If you came to collect your prize, I'm afraid dinner requires scheduling through the foundation. I didn't bid on a prize. Her laugh came out brittle. No, that's not how auctions usually work. That was a donation. And the dinner. A pretext. Her fingers tightened on the stone. At least he was honest enough to be alarming. For what? To speak with you. You could have sent an email. You wouldn't have answered. She looked at him then. You don't know that. I know you ignored 3 calls from Vale, Hart, and Sloan this week, because you assumed any firm contacting you about Monroe Industries intended to exploit the debt position. Her blood chilled. Vale, Hart, and Sloan, the restructuring firm. She had ignored them because she had no appetite for vultures wearing legal letterhead. How do you know that? Because I asked. Asked whom? The managing partner. People usually require subpoenas before they start discussing private business communications. People usually require incentive. She stared at him. Do you hear yourself when you talk? His mouth almost changed. Not a smile, something close enough to disturb her. Yes. Then you understand why I'm considering walking back inside and asking security to remove you. You could. Would they? No. She hated that the answer was not arrogance. It was fact. Adrian stepped fully onto the terrace, letting the door close behind him. He did not come closer than necessary. Several feet remained between them, filled with cold air and the kind of tension that made her too aware of the shape of his hands, the breadth of his shoulders, the absolute stillness of his body. Men like Milton crowded. Adrian did not. Somehow that made him harder to ignore. Celeste folded her arms. You have 2 minutes. 1. Excuse me. You'll know in 1 minute whether you want the second. Against every rational instinct, she wanted to hear what came next. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a small black card. Not a business card. No embossed logo. Just a matte rectangle with a number printed in silver. The debt threatening Monroe Industries is not the real problem, he said. Celeste did not take the card. That's an impressive opening lie. It is. My father's company is days away from default. Yes. The banks are tightening credit. Yes. The board is whispering about emergency restructuring. Because Milton Graves wants them whispering. Her throat tightened. Adrian watched her face. He's been acquiring pressure points for 8 months. Quietly, personally. Enough debt exposure to influence the board. Enough internal support to force a leadership transition when your father's medical leave became public. Celeste's pulse began to pound. No, she had suspected Milton was opportunistic, cruel, manipulative. But this was more than betrayal. This was architecture. How do you know that? Because I track men who build empires out of other people's blind spots. Why? Because I used to be one. The admission should have sounded rehearsed. It did not. It landed between them with the weight of something stripped bare before she could decide whether she wanted to see it. She swallowed, and now I prefer my enemies honest. Convenient standard. Useful one. The city wind cut across the terrace. Celeste became suddenly aware of her bare shoulders, the thin straps of her dress, the goose bumps rising along her arms. She refused to rub them. Adrian noticed anyway. His gaze dropped for half a second, not lingering on her body, but marking the cold. He shrugged out of his jacket. No, Celeste said immediately. He paused, not offended, not amused. Paused. Because you don't want it, he said, or because you think accepting it means something. Her mouth went dry. There was the difference again. The scalpel in his questions. The refusal to let politeness disguise the truth. Both, she said. He nodded once and put the jacket back on. He did not argue, did not cajole, did not perform chivalry until she gave in so he could feel generous. The plea respect of it, unsettled her more than the bid. What do you want from me, Mr. Wolfe? Adrian. No. Now he did smile barely. Fair. Her body had the audacity to respond to that almost smile. A low pull beneath her ribs. A flicker of warmth in places that had no business waking up during a conversation about corporate betrayal. She despised herself for it. He was too controlled, too sharp, too much of everything she could not afford. A man who looked at problems like locks and carried himself like every room had already given him the key. And he had paid $1 million to speak to her. No sane woman would find that thrilling. Celeste had not felt sane in weeks. You're in danger, he said. Financially, publicly, legally, possibly physically if Graves becomes desperate enough. A cold laugh escaped her. There it is. What? The escalation. First debt, then betrayal, now danger. Is this where you imply I need your protection? No. That stopped her. Adrian's eyes held hers. This is where I tell you what I know, and you decide what to do with it. Why? Because 1 month from now, if no one intervenes, Milton Graves will control Monroe Industries. Your father will be blamed for the collapse. You will be painted as either incompetent or complicit. And the company your family built will be sold in pieces to buyers Graves has already selected. The terrace seemed to tilt. Celeste gripped the balustrade behind her. You said 1 month. Yes. How exact? Graves is exact. And you. Worse. She should have hated the answer. Part of her did. Another part, the part running on fear and rage, and too little sleep, wanted to lean closer to the blade instead of away from it. Why tell me tonight? She asked. Because after that bid, he knows I'm interested. In the company. Adrian's gaze moved over her face. The pause was brief. Not brief enough. In the outcome, he said. Her pulse stumbled. Dangerous answer. Your minute is over, she said. Yes. I haven't decided if you get the second. I know. You're very calm for a man who just spent $1 million on a conversation that may end with me walking away. I considered the risk. And worth it. The words should not have felt intimate. They did. Celeste looked away first, furious with herself for needing to. Down on Fifth Avenue, headlights moved in bright streams. People crossing streets, hailing cabs, entering restaurants. Lives untouched by loan covenants, board betrayals, and men who turned charity events into strategic warfare. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled it from her clutch. Unknown number. For a second, she thought it would be Milton. It wasn't a text. It was a photo. Her father in his hospital room, asleep beneath a pale blanket. Then a message beneath it. Tell Wolf to back off, or Robert Monroe wakes up to the truth. Celeste stopped breathing. Adrian's expression changed before she said a word. What is it? She turned the screen toward him. He read the message. The air around him went very still. Not cold now, not composed. Violent, but contained so tightly, it made the fine hairs at the back of her neck lift. Who has access to his room? Adrian asked. My aunt, his nurse, hospital staff. Her voice sounded far away. Security downstairs. Does Graves know his room number? Celeste's stomach twisted. Of course he did. Milton had visited twice, brought flowers, sat beside her father and promised him everything was under control. Her hand shook once before she locked it into a fist. Adrian saw that too. Celeste. The sound of her name in his voice was a problem. She looked up. No one touches your father tonight, he said. Not Graves, not anyone working for him. You can't promise that. Yes, Adrian said, already taking out his phone. I can. Stop. His thumb stilled above the screen. I am not giving you permission to take over my life because someone sent a threat. I'm not asking to take over your life. No, you're just ordering security around before I've agreed to anything. He held her gaze for one hard second. Then he lowered the phone, though it clearly cost him. What do you want? He asked. There it was again. Her choice. It should not have disarmed her. It did. Celeste forced herself to think. Not panic, not react, think. Her father was vulnerable. Milton was moving faster than she had understood. Adrian had information she needed, resources she did not, and motives she could not trust. The worst decision would be surrendering control. The second worst would be refusing help, because pride felt cleaner than survival. I want hospital security alerted, she said, through official channels. No private army storming the cardiac floor. Adrian's eyes flickered. Done. I want my aunt called by me. Yes. And I want every piece of information you have on Milton Graves. That will take longer than tonight. Then you get your second minute. His gaze sharpened. Celeste hated that the corner of S' mouth almost moved again. She pointed at him. Do not look pleased. I'm not pleased. You look pleased. I look controlled. People confuse the two. Despite herself, a laugh nearly broke through. It came out as one breath, unsteady and startled. Adrian noticed. Something in his face shifted not softer exactly, but less armored. For one dangerous heartbeat, they were not heiress and billionaire, not mark and strategist, not two people caught in the machinery of debt and betrayal. They were a man and a woman standing too close to a precipice, both aware of the fall. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another message. The ring is the only way he gets close enough to save you. Celeste stared at it. A chill slid down her spine. What ring? She whispered. Adrian did not answer quickly enough. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to his. The violence had gone from his expression. The control, too. What remained was worse. Guilt. Celeste took one step back. What ring, Mr. Wolf? His jaw tightened. Behind them, the ballroom applause swelled as another auction lot closed, bright and oblivious. Out here, the city glittered like broken glass, and Celeste understood with sudden, absolute certainty that the $1 million bid had been only the visible part of a much darker bargain. Adrian reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. He did not open it. He did not kneel. He simply held it between them like evidence. Dinner was never the offer, he said. It was the introduction. Chapter 2, The Fiancé Clause. Celeste looked at the velvet box in Adrian Wolf's hand and knew, with the icy clarity of a woman standing at the edge of a ruined life, that the ring had been chosen before he ever saw her on that auction stage. Not because he wanted her, because he had planned for her. The difference landed like a slap. She did not reach for the box. She did not look at it longer than the single second necessary to confirm what it was. Black velvet, narrow, expensive, without being ornamental. The kind of box that did not beg to be opened because it had never needed to beg for anything in its life. Adrian held it like a man presenting a weapon by the blade. Explain, Celeste said. Her voice did not shake. Good. She would take that small mercy and build a spine out of it. The terrace doors remained closed behind them, muffling the glittering violence of the sterling charity auction. Inside, women laughed over champagne. Men traded favors in low voices. Money moved from one hand to another wearing perfume and philanthropy as disguise. Outside, Adrian Wolf stood beneath the city's silver-black sky, with a ring box in his hand and guilt in his eyes. He should have looked ridiculous. He did not. He looked exactly like the kind of man who would arrive at a charity auction with $1 million bid, a corporate war plan, and a diamond engagement ring ready for a woman who had never agreed to be part of either. Celeste hated that some treacherous, exhausted part of her wanted to know what was inside. Adrian closed his fingers around the box. Not here. She laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. You just told me dinner was never the offer, produced an engagement ring like a murder weapon, and now you want privacy. Yes. No. His jaw flexed. A tiny thing, a hairline fracture in a granite face. Celeste. No, she stepped closer, rage carrying her before caution could catch up. You do not get to say my name like that. Not after paying $1 million to corner me. Not after telling me my father is in danger. Not after admitting you came here with a ring. I didn't come to corner you. You bought access to me in a room full of people. For charity. For leverage. His eyes darkened. Against Graves, not against you. The difference mattered. She refused to let it. You keep saying Milton is the monster in the room, But you're the one standing in front of me with a box and a plan. I am. The answer punched the air from her lungs because it was not defensive. It was worse. It was honest. Adrian Wolfe did not flinch from what he was. That should have made him easier to hate. Then say it plainly, she demanded. What do you want? You. The word struck too low in her body. Her pulse jumped before her mind could stop it, and she despised both of them for it. Him for saying it like that, her for hearing the heat under the strategy. Adrian saw the reaction. Of course he did. His attention was indecent in its precision. He caught everything and used nothing carelessly. He corrected himself, voice rougher. Beside me, publicly, for 1 month. Celeste stared at him. The city hummed below. A siren cut through traffic somewhere blocks away, rising and fading like a warning she had missed too late. 1 month, she said slowly. Yes. As what? You know. Make yourself say it. His gaze held hers. As my fiancé. There it was. Absurd, elegant, deranged. She should have walked inside. She should have found a ray. Porter pointed to the velvet box and let Adrian Wolfe experience public embarrassment for once in his controlled, terrifying life. Instead, she thought of her father asleep beneath a hospital blanket. Milton Graves smiling across a ballroom. The text with the photo. The banks circling. The board whispering. The company her family had built being carved open by a man who had once called her sweetheart at holiday dinners. She thought of 1 month. She thought of what $1 million had already bought. Time. What are the terms? She asked. Adrian's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Not victory. Concern. That irritated her more. Not on a terrace, he said, and not while Graves may still be watching. He already sent the message. He knows you have the ring. He didn't send that. A fresh chill slid between her ribs. Celeste's grip tightened around her clutch. How do you know? Because Graves threatens like a man who wants his victim to know the hand on the knife belongs to him. He wants credit. That message wasn't his style. His style, her voice went thin. You speak as if blackmail is a wine varietal. With enough exposure, patterns become obvious. And you've had enough exposure. Yes. To Milton. To men like him. A pause. Too much inside it. There was a secret there. Not the corporate kind. The personal kind. A locked room in Adrian Wolfe's voice. Celeste heard the door and knew he would not open it tonight. Good. She had enough rooms burning. Her phone buzzed again. Both of them looked down. This time it was her Aunt Helena. Celeste answered before the first vibration finished. Aunt Helena. Darling. Helena Monroe's voice trembled with the polished panic of a woman trying not to frighten herself. Hospital security just called. They said someone attempted to access Robert's floor using an expired visitor credential. Celeste's heart stopped. Adrian stepped closer, not touching her, but near enough that she felt his presence like a wall at her back. Is Dad okay? Celeste asked. He's sleeping. The nurse is with him. Security turned the person away before they reached the cardiac wing, but they won't tell me more until I arrive. Don't go alone. Celeste, I'm already in the car. Of course she was. Helena Monroe had been born in pearls and battle armor. She did not wait at home when someone threatened family. Put me on speaker with your driver. Why? Please. A small rustle. Then Helena said, "You're on." Celeste kept her voice calm because panic wasted time. "Do not stop anywhere before the hospital. Do not let anyone redirect you. Pull into the main entrance, not the private one. Stay in the car until hospital security meets you at the door. Tell them Celeste Monroe requested a full access log from the last 12 hours. Adrian's gaze moved to her face. Approving. She ignored the flare of satisfaction it caused. Her aunt exhaled. "All right, are you safe?" Celeste looked at Adrian. No easy answer existed. "I'm not alone," she said. Adrian's expression did not change, but something in his eyes did. Helena understood too much and asked too little. "Call me in 10 minutes. "I will." Celeste ended the call. For a moment, she stood very still, the phone cold against her palm. Her father was sick, not helpless, not broken. Sick. He would recover if the world stopped trying to tear pieces from him while his chest was still healing. She had promised herself she would keep the truth from him until he was strong enough to hold it. Now someone had sent her a photograph of him asleep. Not just a threat, a violation. Her vision sharpened in a dangerous way. "Tell me where we're going," she said. Adrian studied her. "My car is downstairs." "No." "Celeste." "No private relocation. No disappearing from an event where everyone knows I was last seen with you." Her mind was working now, fast and cold. "There's a hotel restaurant below the ballroom. Public enough to make a trail, private enough for a conversation. You have 1 hour. You will show me what you have. You will explain the ring, and you will not make a single decision for me without my permission." Adrian looked at her for a long second. Then he said, "Agreed." The word should not have settled something inside her. It did. "And the box," she added. His thumb shifted against the velvet. "What about it?" "Put it away." Something flickered across his face. Amusement, perhaps, or pain with better manners. He slipped the ring box back into his pocket. Celeste walked past him to the terrace doors. Before she opened them, she felt his voice at her back. "There is one more thing." She turned. Adrian's gaze had moved beyond her, toward the ballroom, where Milton Graves stood visible through the glass, talking to 2 board members from Monroe Industries. Milton was laughing. One of the men was not. "What?" "From this moment on," Adrian said, "assume any man who suddenly offers to help your family has already been paid not to." By TA. Time they reached the private dining level beneath the Sterling Grand. The auction had moved on to a yacht excursion, a signed Steinway, and a week at someone's villa in Lake Como. Celeste moved through all of it, with Adrian half a step behind her. Not beside, not in front. Behind, she noticed, because men like him did not naturally trail anyone. He did it deliberately, leaving her the visible lead as they descended the side staircase from the ballroom. Anyone watching would see Celeste Monroe choosing where to go and Adrian Wolfe following. The courtesy was so subtle that she resented it for being effective. She also noticed the way people looked at them. Women's eyes widened over champagne rims. Men straightened and pretended not to. A famous editor turned her head so fast her diamond earring flashed like a blade. A junior board member from Monroe Industries stared at Celeste's bare left hand, then at Adrian, then immediately looked away as if he had seen something confidential. By morning, rumors would mutate. By midnight, they would have bones. The Sterling Grand's restaurant, Aurelia, had closed to the public for the evening, but remained available to auction guests with enough money or name recognition to bend rules. Adrian needed only to give the host a glance. Within minutes, they were shown to a corner table shielded by velvet drapes, with a view of the darkened wine room and a clean sightline to the entrance. Celeste waited until the host left. "Do you own this restaurant too?" "No." "Disappointing. I own the building." She stared. This time, Adrian did smile. It was brief, controlled, devastating. Celeste looked away first and hated herself for it. A waiter appeared with water and a wine list. Adrian did not reach for it. "Coffee," Celeste said. The waiter glanced at Adrian. Celeste's spine straightened. "I ordered coffee." Adrian's gaze cut to the waiter, mild and lethal. "Then bring coffee." The waiter vanished. Celeste folded her hands on the table so she would not rub at the goose bumps along her arms. The restaurant was warmer than the terrace, but the cold had moved under her skin and settled there. Adrian noticed. Again. This time, he did not offer his jacket. He simply looked toward the host station. A minute later, a server arrived with a black cashmere wrap folded over one arm. Celeste narrowed her eyes. Adrian said nothing. The server offered the wrap to Celeste directly. "Compliments of the house, Miss Monroe. The dining room runs cold." Clever. She could refuse him. Refusing the temperature was childish. "Thank you," she said, taking it from the server. Adrian's gaze dropped to her hands as she settled the fabric around her shoulders. The wrap was soft, warm, and smelled faintly of cedar from storage. Not his cologne, not his body, not intimacy disguised as courtesy. Celeste hated that she understood the distinction. The coffee arrived, black for Adrian with cream for her. She had not specified. Her eyes lifted. He said, "Your public interviews. You take coffee with cream, no sugar." "You researched my coffee order." "I researched everything publicly available." "That's supposed to make it better." "No." "At least we agree on something." He took a drink of coffee. "You're angry." "I'm inspired." "By anger." "By men who assume desperation makes women negotiable." His cup paused halfway to the table. Then he set it down carefully. "Good." Celeste blinked. "Good." "Yes." Most men dislike being included in a sentence like that. Most men need to be liked. "And you do." His gaze held hers. "I need to be understood." It was the first thing he had said all night that sounded less like strategy and more like wound. Celeste almost answered too quickly. She stopped herself. There were traps made of cruelty. There were also traps made of confession. She knew that. Her father had taught her kindness did not become harmless just because it was real. "Then be understandable," she said. "Start with the contract." Adrian reached inside his jacket. Celeste's body reacted before her mind did. A flicker of alarm, old and animal, sharpened by the evening's threats. He stopped instantly. His eyes came to hers, a folder. She exhaled through her nose, irritated at herself. "Fine." Slowly, deliberately, he removed a slim charcoal folder and set it on the table between them. He did not push it toward her. Another choice left in her hands. Celeste opened it. The first page was titled Private Engagement Agreement. Her laugh was almost silent. "You named it." "My attorneys named it." That does not help. I fired 3 before finding one willing to leave out the morality clause. Her eyes snapped up. There was a morality clause in the first draft, and you removed it. Yes. Why? Because your private life is not mine to govern. A small, unwelcome heat stirred beneath her breastbone. She looked back down before he could see it. The contract was concise, which surprised her. She had expected a corporate labyrinth. Instead, it was clean, brutal, and readable. 1 month of public engagement. 3 jointly attended events. No requirement of cohabitation without mutual agreement. No expectation of sexual relationship. Either party could terminate upon written notice. Adrian Wolfe would satisfy the outstanding emergency debt burden attached to Robert Monroe's personal guarantees, and provide interim legal protection for Monroe Industries, pending internal review. Celeste read that clause 3 times. Satisfy the outstanding emergency debt burden. Not loan, not invest, not acquire. Satisfy. You would erase the debt, she said. Yes. Why not buy the company? Because Graves wants me to. Her eyes lifted. There, another turn in the maze. You're saying Milton wants you to buy Monroe Industries. He wants me to believe I'm buying distressed assets before anyone else can move. In reality, I would be buying contaminated control. The moment Wolf Capital touches the company, Graves releases documents implying your father concealed liabilities. The board panics, and regulators get involved. Share price collapses. Graves walks away from the wreckage clean, having already moved the valuable contracts through third parties. Celeste stared at him. The room seemed to recede, the gold light, the velvet drapes, the quiet clink of glassware somewhere beyond the curtain. Why would he lure you in? She asked. Because he thinks I'm predictable. And are you? Until tonight. Because of me. Because of what he did to you. Her throat tightened without permission. Adrian did not soften the words. He did not make them romantic. That made them worse. She forced herself back to the contract. Compensation structure. Confidentiality, public conduct, security protocols, media narrative. Then she reached Clause 7. Physical boundaries and consent. Celeste went still. She read it once, then again. No physical affection beyond mutually agreed public gestures. Private intimacy outside the scope of agreement. No party may imply, demand, or pressure the other into sexual contact as condition of contract fulfillment. Either party may withdraw consent to public or private touch at any time. Her mouth went dry. It would have been easier if he had been monstrous in the expected ways. She could fight a man who wanted ownership. Adrian Wolfe had offered her an engagement contract that explicitly refused rights to her body. Celeste looked up. Your attorneys wrote this. No. You did. Yes. Why? His expression locked down. Too fast. There was the door again, the hidden room. Because clarity protects both people, he said. That sounds rehearsed. It is. Try unrehearsed. He leaned back slightly, gaze dropping to the contract. Not retreating, recalibrating. My father believed agreements were what powerful men used to make cruelty look civilized, he said. He was often right. Celeste forgot, for 1 second, how to breathe. Adrian's voice remained calm, but the air around the words did not. There was history there. Something brutal, locked and buried beneath money, discipline, and expensive tailoring. She should have pressed. She wanted to press. Instead, she recognized the shape of a boundary. Then why use one? She asked. Because the alternative is pretending expectations don't exist until someone weaponizes them. That answer she understood. God help her, she understood it too well. Celeste turned back to the pages. 3 public events. Yes. Which ones? Tomorrow night, a board-adjacent dinner hosted by Lydia Shaw. Graves will attend. Next week, the Wolf Foundation Gala. End of the month, Monroe Industries, emergency shareholder meeting. Her fingers tightened on the paper. You already knew about the shareholder meeting. Yes. I found out this afternoon. I found out last week. Anger flared. From whom? A board member who fears Graves, but likes prison less. Name? Not yet. Her eyes narrowed. Adrian's gaze did not move. I will not expose a source until I know you won't confront them impulsively and burn the only internal channel we currently have. You don't know me well enough to decide what I would do. I watched you handle Graves on that terrace. You have courage. You also have a temper. She opened her mouth, closed it. Annoyingly, he was not wrong. I have a right to know who inside my father's company is talking to you. Yes. Then give me the name. No. The refusal was so calm, she nearly threw the contract at his head. Careful, Mr. Wolf. You're one withheld answer away from proving my point. What point? That you want a fiancé-shaped employee. His eyes hardened. No. You just refused to give me information about my own company. I refused to hand you a match while you're standing in gasoline. That is not your choice. No, he said, it is my mistake. The admission stopped her. Adrian leaned forward, forearms resting on the table, voice lower. You're right, the name is yours to know. But if I give it to you tonight, while you're angry and frightened for your father, I increase the risk to that person and to you. So I am asking you to wait until morning. Not obey, not trust blindly. Wait. Celeste hated the way. Her anger had nowhere clean to land. He was still withholding, but he was also naming it. Morning, she said. Yes. If I sign anything tonight, which I have not agreed to do, the source name becomes part of the morning disclosure. Agreed. She took his pen from the folder. Adrian's gaze dropped to it. You haven't read the full agreement. I'm not signing, she clicked the pen. I'm editing. Another almost smile. Of course you are. Celeste ignored the warmth. Those words tried to waken her and began crossing out clauses. The media narrative clause went first. This makes me sound like decoration, she said. It makes the story simple. I am not simple. I noticed. She crossed out public messaging shall emphasize Mr. Wolf's stabilizing influence and wrote, public messaging shall emphasize mutual respect and Miss Monroe's continued leadership role. Then she turned the page. Why does it say all public appearances require your approval? For security, for control, for both. At least you're honest. She struck the sentence hard enough that the pen nearly tore the page. Replace it with joint approval except in emergencies, and define emergencies narrowly. Adrian watched her mark up the contract, as if the sight interested him more than obedience ever could. The realization unsettled her. Milton had always praised her when she was agreeable. Board members smiled when she was diplomatic. Men liked her intelligence best when it arrived polished, useful, and non-threatening. Adrian watched her argue with his contract, like he wanted to know what she would destroy next. It should not have felt like being desired. It did. She reached the cohabitation clause. No, you haven't read it. I read the heading. It states cohabitation is optional. The heading is still offensive. It says residential logistics. It says inevitable trap in a suit. His mouth curved for one brief, dangerous second. Strike it. She did. He let her. That became its own kind of tension. Not submission, not surrender, something sharper. A negotiation with heat under it. Every time she challenged him, he either resisted with a reason or yielded without drama. No wounded male pride. No condescension disguised as patience. Just pressure meeting pressure. By page 6, Celeste had forgotten to be cold. By page 7, Adrian had loosened his tie. By page 8, she realized she had been staring at the exposed column of his throat for 3 seconds too long. He noticed. Of course he noticed. His gaze lifted from the contract to her face. The air changed again, thinning at the edges. Celeste looked back down. Clause 12 is unacceptable. You don't know what Clause 12 says. No clause numbered 12 in a billionaire's private engagement agreement has ever benefited a woman. That is statistically impossible. Emotionally true. Read it. She did. Clause 12, no lies. Celeste went still. The words were centered alone on the page. No legal sprawl, no definitions, no exceptions. Just 2 words. She looked at him. Adrian's expression had gone unreadable. You put this in. Yes. Why? Because I knew you would ask for it. Her chest tightened. You don't know me. I know you demanded Graves tell you the truth, even when you already knew it would hurt. The accuracy landed too close. Celeste set down the pen. Outside the velvet drapes, the restaurant moved softly around them. A waiter murmured near the bar. Silverware chimed. Somewhere above, the auction carried on without them, raising money beneath chandeliers while a corporate betrayal sharpened itself below. No lies is impossible, she said. No, it's inconvenient. That sounds like something a liar would say. It is something a liar would avoid agreeing to. She studied him. Adrian Wolfe was hiding things. She knew it in her bones, not just sources, not just strategy. There were shadows behind his eyes, old ones, and the discipline of a man who had spent years making sure no one got close enough to name them. But he was offering a standard, a dangerous one, because if she signed it, it bound her too. Celeste had lied to her father about the company. She had lied to the board about how much she knew. She had lied to herself every morning that she could fix this without becoming someone harder. What happens if one of us breaks it? She asked. The agreement terminates. That's not enough. What would be? She picked up the pen again and wrote beneath Clause 12. Any material omission that affects consent, safety, finances, family, or public reputation constitutes a lie. Adrian leaned forward to read it. His face changed. Barely. But she saw it. That clause scares you, she said. No. Adrian. His eyes cut. To hers. The name had slipped out before she could stop it. A mistake. A small one. A dangerous one. For a moment, neither of them moved. His name sat between them, no longer a concession, not quite an intimacy, but something with heat in it. "No," he said, quieter. "It doesn't scare me." "Then what?" "It makes this more expensive. Financially. Personally." Her pulse slowed, then struck hard. That was the problem with Adrian Wolfe. His restraint made every honest sentence feel indecent. Celeste closed the folder before she did something reckless, like ask him what he would lose by telling her the truth. "I need to call my aunt." "Use mine." She looked at the phone he placed on the table. "Why?" "Yours may be compromised." The thought should have occurred to her already. It annoyed her that it had not. She used his phone. Helena answered on the second ring with a voice full of brittle control. "Wolfe." "It's me," Celeste said. "Are you with Dad?" "I'm outside his room. He's still asleep. Security is posted at both ends of the corridor. The hospital administrator is pretending not to panic, which is never reassuring." Relief hit so hard Celeste had to close her eyes. Was anyone identified? Not yet. The credential belonged to a former private nurse. She stopped working here 7 months ago. Celeste opened her eyes. Across the table, Adrian watched her face. 7 months, she repeated. His expression sharpened. Milton had been acquiring pressure points for 8 months. Helena's voice lowered. "Celeste, what is happening?" The lie rose automatically. "Nothing. It's handled, don't worry." Clause 12 sat in the closed folder between them. "No lies." Celeste swallowed. "I don't know all of it yet," she said. The truth tasted unfamiliar and clean. "But Milton may be involved in more than bad finances." A silence. Then her aunt said, very softly, "I wondered when you would see it." Celeste's blood chilled. "What does that mean?" Adrian went still. "Not over the phone," Helena said. "Aunt Helena." "Not over the phone," she repeated, and beneath the elegance was iron. "I'll stay with your father tonight. Find out what Wolfe knows, but do not let him make you believe information is the same as trust." Celeste's gaze remained locked with Adrian's. "I won't. And darling." "Yes." "Your mother once said Adrian Wolfe was the most dangerous boy she had ever pitied." The line went dead. Celeste sat frozen, with Adrian's phone in her hand. Her mother had been dead for 9 years. The restaurant sounds dulled until she could hear only her own heartbeat. Adrian's face had lost color, not much, enough. "What?" Celeste asked slowly. "Did my mother know about you?" Adrian did not answer. The silence changed everything. Before, his secrecy had been strategic, irritating, possibly necessary. Now it had roots in her family, in her past, in a woman Celeste still missed with the kind of grief that did not bleed, but never stopped bruising. Adrian. His name was no longer a mistake. It was a demand. He took his phone back carefully, as if giving himself 1 extra second before the world tilted. "Your mother represented my mother once." Celeste blinked, represented her. "As an attorney. My mother practiced family law before I was born." "Yes." "What case?" His gaze lowered to the contract. "Not away. Down." As if the truth sat somewhere between them, but would cut if lifted too quickly. "My mother tried to leave my father," he said. "Your mother helped her." The sentence entered Celeste quietly and detonated a moment later. Adrian's father. She knew pieces, the way everyone knew pieces of famous monsters after death. Conrad Wolf had been old Wall Street brutality in human form, founder of the original Wolf Empire. Cruel in business, crueler, rumor whispered, in private. He had died when Adrian was 23, and Adrian had turned grief into a takeover so swift it became legend. "My mother never told me," Celeste said. "She couldn't, sealed records. But she told my aunt enough to pity you." A faint, bitter edge touched his mouth. Pity was never necessary. People who say that usually needed it most. The words escaped before she could soften them. Adrian's eyes returned to hers. For the first time all night, he looked younger than 35. Not soft, never that, but marked. The controlled billionaire vanished for a flicker, and beneath him stood the boy her mother had pitied, dangerous already maybe, but not yet powerful enough to save anyone. Celeste felt the unwanted pull of it. Not attraction this time. Recognition. They were both children of families that had taught them too early that love and leverage could share a room. Adrian looked away first. The victory felt awful. "I did not know you were Laura Monroe's daughter when I began tracking graves," he said. Celeste did not miss the shape of the sentence. "But you knew before tonight." "Yes." "When?" "3 weeks ago. And you didn't tell me." "No." Clause Twee. LVE seemed to burn inside the folder. "Why?" "Because I was not certain you would meet with me if you knew my connection to your mother." "You were right." His jaw tightened. "I know. That does not make the omission better." "No." Celeste stood. The chair scraped back against marble. Adrian rose too, but he did not block her. "Good. If he had, this would have ended there." "I need air," she said. "We're indoors." "I know geography, Adrian." He almost smiled, then did not, because she was furious. Celeste stepped past the velvet drape into the quieter edge of the restaurant. A hallway led toward the private restrooms, the wine room, and an emergency exit marked in discreet brass. She did not go outside. She was not foolish enough to leave the public trail she had insisted on maintaining. She stopped near the wine room glass and stared at shelves of bottles sleeping behind lock and temperature control. A ridiculous thought came to her. Wine was the only old thing rich people admitted could turn sour if stored badly. She pressed her fingers to her temple. Her mother had known Adrian. Not the man, the boy. The dangerous boy she pitied. Celeste tried to remember Laura Monroe's voice saying his name and found nothing. Her mother had been composed, affectionate, private. She had carried other people's secrets, like legal documents, pressed flat between the pages of her life. Celeste had been 18 when cancer took her. Too young to know that some questions disappeared forever if not asked in time. Adrian approached, but stopped several feet away. "What was she like with your mother?" Celeste asked without turning. "Kind." The answer came too quickly to be calculated. Pain opened beneath Celeste's ribs. That was her mother. Kind in a way that was not weakness. Kind like a door held open in a burning house. Did she help her leave? A pause. "No." Celeste turned. Adrian's face was unreadable again, but not untouched. He had rebuilt the walls, but the seams still showed. "What happened?" "My father found out." The simplicity of the answer made it worse. Celeste understood then that asking more would not be curiosity. It would be intrusion. Not here, not tonight, perhaps not ever unless he chose it. She looked back at the wine bottles. Is that why you do this? Do what? Find men like Milton Graves and break their hands before they close. Adrian was quiet long enough that she thought he would not answer. Yes, he said finally, sometimes. Not always. Sometimes I do it because they are in my way. Despite everything, a laugh broke from her. Small, dark, unsteady. Adrian's gaze moved to her mouth, and the laugh died there. The air between them changed again. It should not have. Not after threats, contracts, mothers, fathers, old violence, new betrayal. Especially not then. Maybe because of it. The body was perverse in crisis. It reached for heat near danger, for pulse near fear, for proof it was alive when the world kept producing reasons to go numb. Adrian's attention on her was not like Milton's. Not slick, not entitled, not reducing her to need and debt and dress. It was worse because it seemed to see all of her at once. Anger, exhaustion, suspicion, grief, calculation, hunger. The parts she polished for public view and the parts she kept locked behind her teeth. Celeste should have stepped back. She did not. Adrian noticed that too. Celeste, he said, voice low. A warning. Or a request. She did not know which. What? You're angry. Yes. At me. Yes. This is not the moment to blur lines. The fact that he said it steadied and inflamed her in equal measure. She looked directly at him. I decide when my lines blur. His eyes darkened. Then decide with all the information, he said. You're afraid for your father. You're furious with Graves. You're shaken by what your aunt said. And I am not neutral in this room. Her pulse beat hard because of the contract. Because I want you. This time, the words did not strike like strategy. They struck like restraint finally telling the truth. Celeste's breath caught. Adrian did not move closer. He did not soften it either. I won't touch you while you're reacting to fear, he said. Her body went hot, then cold, then hot again. Consent had never sounded like denial before. Never like discipline. Never like a man holding back not because he lacked appetite, but because he respected hers too much to take advantage of its confusion. Celeste wanted to hate him. Instead, she wanted to ask what he would do if fear were not in the room. That was dangerous. So she said, You assume a lot. I observe. You observed that I want you. His stillness was absolute. No, he said. I observed that you're tempted. Want is something you tell me, not something I take from your body and call fact. Her mouth went dry. There were many ways to seduce a woman. Celeste had encountered several tonight alone, most disguised as money, pity, or power. This was worse. This was a man, M. Aching restraint feel like intimacy. She looked away first, not because she was embarrassed, because she needed to survive the next 5 minutes without doing something that would make the contract irrelevant. When she trusted her voice again, she said, I still haven't agreed to be your fiancé. No, I still don't trust you. You shouldn't. That brought her eyes back. You're not making a strong case for yourself. I'd rather make an accurate one. Fine, accurately, what happens if I say no? Graves continues the takeover attempt. I keep working the outside channels. Your father remains exposed unless you take independent action. You may still win, but slower and with fewer resources. And if I say yes, we control the narrative. We put you in proximity to Graves at Lydia Shaw's dinner with public protection he cannot challenge. We draw out whoever sent the ring message. We make the board believe Wolf Capital is aligned with you, not circling your father's company. And I eliminate the emergency debt before the banks can use it to force concessions. You eliminate it. Yes, with no claim on Monroe Industries. No claim. No private claim on me. His eyes sharpened. No. No expectation that fake becomes real. A pause. That pause should not have hurt. No expectation, he said. Celeste nodded once, as if something had been settled instead of exposed. She walked back to the table. Adrian followed. This time, when she sat, she pulled the contract toward herself with both hands. She read the remaining pages while he waited. Not patiently, exactly. Adrian Wolf did not have a patient presence. He had a contained one, like a storm held behind glass. Her mind moved cleaner now. The threat to her father had clarified the stakes. Her aunt's revelation had complicated Adrian, but not disqualified him. His restraint in the hallway had done something she was not ready to name. Still, every clause mattered. She crossed out the confidentiality penalty because it disproportionately punished her. Adrian accepted the revision. She added a requirement that all security personnel assigned to her family identify themselves and remain subject to her approval. He amended it with a qualification for imminent threat. She narrowed imminent to credible and documented. They argued for 4 minutes about the definition of public affection. Hand-holding is acceptable by default, Adrian said. By whose default? Most engaged couples. We are not most engaged couples. No, most engaged couples don't negotiate hand placement with ink. Then you should be enjoying the novelty. His gaze flicked to her mouth again. I am. The pen paused in her hand. There it was. Heat under the words. Controlled but not hidden. Celeste looked down before the moment could take shape. Kissing, she said, not by default. No. You agree? Yes. She glanced up, suspicious. That easily. I have no interest in kissing a woman who hasn't decided she wants my mouth on hers. Her body reacted so violently, she nearly dropped the pen. Adrian's expression did not change, but she saw the satisfaction in his eyes. Not smug. Male. Deeply, intolerably male. You enjoy making simple statements sound obscene, she said. I enjoy being understood. You said that already. It remains true. She wrote, kissing by mutual verbal agreement only. Then, because she hated herself a little, she added, or by clear initiation from either party, with immediate respect for refusal. Adrian read the line. His gaze lifted slowly. The heat between them became a living thing. You plan to initiate, he asked. I plan to preserve legal symmetry. Of course. The words were dry. His eyes were not. Celeste set the pen down. You're enjoying this too much. I enjoy competence. That is not what this is. No, he said, it is. The honesty slid over her skin. For one foolish second, she imagined leaning across the table and finding out whether Adrian Wolf kissed like he negotiated. Precise, controlled, devastating only because he knew exactly when not to push. She folded that thought into a locked box and mentally threw it into the Hudson. Then her phone buzzed. Again. Her actual phone, not Adrian's. The sound cut through the heat like wire. Celeste pulled it from her clutch. Unknown number. A single attachment loaded on the screen. Not a photograph this time. A document. She opened it before Adrian could advise caution. It was a scanned board resolution, dated for tomorrow morning. Subject: emergency motion to remove Robert Monroe as acting chair and appoint interim oversight committee. Milton's name appeared in the proposed committee. So did 2 other board members. At the bottom was a line that made Celeste's blood turn to ice. Supporting family representative, Celeste Monroe. Her signature sat beneath it. Forged. Adrian was already standing beside her when she looked up. She had not heard him move. He read the document over her shoulder, without touching her. The nearness was overwhelming and irrelevant. "Tell me that's fake," she said. "It's fake." "Tell me you can prove it." "I can." She exhaled, then looked at the final line of the message beneath the attachment. "Sign Wolf's contract by midnight, or the board sees that version first." Celeste's hand went cold around the phone. Adrian went very still. "Not Graves," she whispered. "No." "How can you be sure?" "Because this helps me." She looked at him. The statement was brutal, accurate, horrifying. Whoever had sent the document was not trying to drive her away from Adrian. They were forcing her toward him. The ring is the only way he gets close enough to save you. Her throat tightened. Who would want that? Adrian's face had gone hard in a way she had not seen before. Not anger, calculation under pressure. A man watching the board change because an unseen player had just moved a queen. "I don't know," he said. It was the first answer all night that sounded like it cost him. Celeste looked at the contract, at clause 12, at the revisions in her handwriting, at his name already printed at the bottom, waiting for a signature that would turn rumor into strategy and strategy into a cage she had helped design. Then she looked at Adrian. "No lies," she said. "No lies. If I sign this, I am not yours." His expression sharpened. "No. I am not your asset. No. I am not your redemption story, because my mother once helped yours." Something flashed across his face. Pain there and gone. "No," he said quietly. "And if you hide anything from me that affects my father, my company, or my consent, I walk." "Yes." She picked up the pen. For 1 second, her hand hovered above the signature line. This was madness. This was leverage dressed as engagement. This was walking willingly into a dark room with a dangerous man, because the monster behind her had already lit the hall on fire. But Celeste Monroe had never survived by choosing clean options. She survived by choosing the option that left her standing. She signed her name. Adrian watched the ink dry as if it were blood. Then he took the pen from her hand, careful not to touch her fingers, and signed beneath his own name with a single ruthless stroke. The contract was done. The engagement was real enough to ruin them. Celeste closed the folder. "Now give me the ring." Adrian's eyes lifted. For the first time that night, she surprised him. "Good." He reached into his pocket and removed the velvet box. This time, when he opened it, the diamond inside did not flash gaudy or huge. It burned. Oval cut, clear as frozen fire, set on a narrow platinum band with 2 dark stones tucked close to the center like secrets. Black diamonds. Of course. Celeste stared at it. "It belonged to my mother," Adrian said. Her breath caught. That changed the ring, the box, the contract, the entire insult of its existence. "You brought me your mother's ring." "Yes." "Why?" "Because a fake ring would make this a lie." The answer moved through her with dangerous force. "No lies." She looked up at him. "And what does giving it to me make it?" His gaze held hers, dark and controlled, and not controlled at all. "A risk." Celeste should have made him place it on the table. Instead, she held out her left hand. Adrian went still. She could see the restraint move through him, a visible tightening in his jaw, his shoulders, the hand holding the ring. He was not unaffected, not even close. The sight of that controlled fracture sent heat through her with such force she had to remind herself this was not desire's moment to lead. He took the ring from the box. His fingers did not touch hers at first. Then the cool band met her skin. His thumb brushed the base of her finger as he slid the ring into place. And the contact was so slight it should have meant nothing. It did not mean nothing. Celeste's breath caught. Adrian heard it. His eyes lifted to hers. "Is this okay?" he asked. The question was quiet. Unnecessary, some would have said. The ring was already on her finger. The agreement was signed. The gesture was public theater waiting to happen. But he asked anyway. Celeste looked at his hand still near hers, the dark veins beneath his skin, the controlled strength in his fingers, the ring that had belonged to a woman who tried to escape a cruel man and did not. Then she looked at Adrian. "Yes," she said, "the ring is okay." His thumb withdrew immediately. A perfect withdrawal. A devastating one. "Good," he said, but his voice was rougher. She wanted, suddenly and irrationally, to make him lose more of that control. Not because he had bought her, because he had not touched what she had not offered. Dangerous distinction. Before she could step away from it, the waiter appeared at the edge of the drape, face pale. "Mr. Wolfe." Adrian's head turned. The waiter held an envelope in one trembling hand. This was left at the host's stand, for Miss Monroe. Celeste stood before Adrian could tell her not to. She took the envelope herself. Plain white, her name written in black ink. No title, no flourish. Inside was a single card. "Congratulations on your engagement." Beneath it, in smaller letters, "Now ask him what he did the night your mother died." Chapter 3, Silk, SECRETS, and Teeth. Celeste read the note twice, because the first time, her mind refused to let the words become real. Now ask him what he did the night your mother died. The restaurant did not move. The velvet drapes did not stir. The glassware remained aligned on the table, untouched and shining beneath the low amber lights. Somewhere beyond the private corner, a woman laughed softly at a bar, the sound civilized and distant, belonging to a world where dead mothers stayed dead, and did not reach through 9 years of silence to put their hands around a daughter's throat. Celeste looked up at Adrian Wolfe. He had gone still in the way. Predators went still before blood touched the floor. Not confused, not surprised enough. That was the detail her body understood before her heart could. The note shook once in her hand. She hated that. Hated the tremor, hated the witness, hated the sudden childlike urge to hear him say it was a cruel lie, an ugly trick, another move from whatever unseen hand was forcing them toward each other. Adrian did not say that. His eyes stayed on the card. Dark, fixed, terrible. "What did you do?" Celeste asked. Her voice sounded calm, only because shock had frozen everything softer. Adrian looked at her then. "Not here." The same answer as before. Privacy, control, distance from listening ears. This time it scraped raw. "No," she said. "You don't get to use that tone with me twice in one night." His jaw tightened. "Celeste, what did you do the night my mother died?" The waiter stood paralyzed at the edge of the drape, envelope tray still in his hand. Adrian did not look at him. "Leave us," he said. The waiter vanished. Celeste's fingers closed around the note until the card bent. "Answer me." "I was in London." The answer came quickly, too quickly to be improvised. "I was 26. Wolf Capital had a pending acquisition. Your mother died at Memorial Sloan Kettering at 2:17 in the morning, New York time. I was in a boardroom 5 hours ahead, breaking a company that deserved to be broken." The specificity hurt. The fact that he knew the time hurt worse. "Why do you know that?" "Because I called her office the next morning." Celeste's breath caught. The restaurant narrowed around them until there was only his face, the note, and the ring burning cold on her finger. "Why?" Adrian looked down at the table. Not away from guilt. Into it. "My mother had died 3 weeks earlier," he said. "I had found sealed documents after the funeral. Your mother's name was in them. I called to ask what she knew." Celeste could not speak. Her mother had been dying then. Thin wrists, soft scarves, morphine making her drift in and out of rooms. Celeste had been 18 and sleeping in hospital chairs, learning the geography of loss one fluorescent hallway at a time. Somewhere in the middle of that, Adrian Wolfe had called. "And?" she asked. She was too ill to speak. Celeste's chest tightened. "So what did you do?" "I asked to be notified if she recovered enough to take calls. And then she died." "Yes." There was no defense in his voice. No excuse. That should have helped. "It did not." "Did you come to the funeral?" "No." "Did you send flowers?" "No." "Did you ever contact my family?" "No." She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "But you kept track of me." "Not then." "Do not split hairs with me." Adrian's eyes lifted. "I'm not. You knew my mother helped yours. You knew my mother died with whatever secrets she had. And now someone is sending notes about that night minutes after you put your mother's ring on my hand." "Yes." "Does that sound like coincidence to you?" "No." The simple answer cut the last thread of patience she had left. Celeste stood. The chair did not scrape this time. She moved too carefully for that. There was a particular kind of fury that became elegant when a woman refused to give anyone the satisfaction of a scene. Adrian rose with her. "Sit down," she said. He stopped. The obedience was immediate, not submissive, disciplined. The same kind of restraint he had shown all night, and somehow that made her angrier because it gave her nothing obvious to strike. "You owe me every truth you have," she said. "Every ugly one, every inconvenient one, every buried name and sealed document and family secret you have been carrying into this engagement like a loaded gun. You're right. I am so tired of you agreeing with me while withholding the thing I actually asked for." He absorbed that without flinching. Then he said, "I don't know what your mother knew. I know she helped my mother file a petition under seal. I know my father stopped it before it reached open court. I know your mother kept copies of something because my mother referred to them in a letter I found after she died. I never found those copies. Celeste went very still. What copies? I don't know. About your father. Yes. About abuse. A pause. His face did not change, but the room seemed to darken around him. Yes. The word was quiet and final. Celeste's anger did not disappear. It changed shape. It had been flame. Now it became glass. She remembered the way her mother had always gone quiet when certain society names appeared in the paper. Conrad Wolfe had been one of them. A photograph of him at a gala. A quote about market discipline. A profile calling him ruthless, visionary, impossible to intimidate. Her mother had turned the page. Celeste had been too young to understand that silence could be grief, with its mouth sewn shut. Adrian said, I did not harm your mother. I did not threaten her. I did not know she was dying until I called her office. But I wanted what she knew, and I wanted it for myself before I wanted justice for anyone else. That confession landed harder than a denial. Because she believed it. Because she hated that she believed it. The note crumpled in her hand. Who else knows about this? Anyone with access to my mother's records. Anyone with access to your mother's archived files. Graves, if he's dug deep enough. Whoever sent that note. Milton knew my mother. Yes, everyone knew my mother. Adrian said nothing. That silence was answer enough. Celeste looked down at her left hand. The ring caught the restaurant light and threw it back fractured. Frozen fire. Black stones. A dead woman's ring on another dead woman's daughter's finger. She suddenly could not bear the feel of it. Her fingers closed around the band. Adrian's expression sharpened. Don't, he said. The word hit the table between them. Celeste looked up slowly. His face changed the instant he realized the shape of it. Command, panic, possession. A single syllable carrying too much of all three. He drew a breath through his nose. Please, he said lower. Not here, not because of them. Her throat tightened. That was the first time she had heard him ask for anything without strategy wrapped around it. The ring remained half-turned on her finger. Tell me why, she said. His gaze fixed on her hand. Because whoever sent that note wants the ring to become poison. They want you to feel trapped by it. They want me reactive. If you take it off here, in front of staff, after signing the agreement, the story can be shaped before we understand who's shaping it. All tactical reasons. His eyes lifted to hers. And because it was my mother's, he said. And for one irrational second, seeing you tear it off would feel like losing twice. Celeste's hand went slack. There it was. Not the billionaire. Not the corporate executioner. Not the man who bought a dinner and produced a contract and negotiated consent clauses like they were war terms. A son, damaged, controlled, still bleeding from a wound old enough to have become part of his skeleton. It did not absolve him. It did make him human. Celeste lowered her hand. I'm not keeping it on for you, she said. No, I'm keeping it on until I know what taking it off would cost me. Yes, and after tonight, if I ask a question, you answer it unless the answer endangers someone. Yes, no hiding behind timing. No deciding I'm too emotional for the truth. His mouth tightened. No. And if I find out, You knew more about my mother than you admitted. This ends." The words were supposed to feel decisive. Instead, they felt like standing in a room and threatening to burn down the only exit. Adrian nodded once. "Then we need to leave." Celeste almost laughed. "That is exactly the kind of sentence that makes me trust you less." "I know." He reached for the folder and the note. "This restaurant is no longer controlled space. Because of the envelope. Because the person who delivered it reached the host stand inside a building I own during a private event after my security was already alert." The cold under Celeste's skin returned. Adrian folded the note into the folder without pocketing it. "That means either the breach is internal, or whoever is doing this has access I underestimated. And your solution is your penthouse." "My solution is a place where I control every entrance, elevator, camera, and signal jammer." "Signal jammer." His gaze met hers, only if needed. "How reassuring." "I'm not trying to reassure you." "Clearly. I'm trying to keep you alive long enough to hate me accurately." The line should not have made her want to laugh. It did. A small breath escaped her, disbelieving and exhausted. Adrian's eyes caught on it, as if he had not expected that sound from her, and wanted, absurdly, to earn another. That was dangerous too. Everything about him was dangerous. His money, his secrets, his restraint, his damage. The way he could make the same room feel like a cage and a shelter, depending on which truth she looked at. "Tea." Celeste pulled the cashmere wrap tighter around her shoulders. "I need to call my aunt again." "Use my phone." "You still think mine is compromised?" "I think whoever forged your signature and photographed your father has resources. Until we know what they are, caution is cheaper than regret." She took his phone. Helena answered with a clipped, "Yes." "It's me. Are you safe?" Celeste looked at Adrian. "No," she said honestly, "but I'm informed." Her aunt exhaled, an improvement then. "Dad?" Asleep, 2 security guards outside his room. 1 hospital administrator pretending he invented vigilance. I have Robert's nurse glaring at anyone with a clipboard. We'll survive the night. The relief was so sharp, it almost hurt. "Good," Celeste said. "And Wolf?" "He's here." "I assumed." Celeste hesitated. Adrian did not move, did not pretend not to listen. There was no point. Every word between them had consequences now. "Aunt Helena, did Mom keep archived client files anywhere outside her firm?" Silence. Then carefully, "Why?" "Because someone thinks she did." Another silence, heavier. "Come see me in the morning," Helena said. Celeste closed her eyes. That sounds like yes. It sounds like come see me in the morning. Is this about Adrian's mother? Adrian's expression did not change, but something in the air around him tightened. Helena's voice softened. "Your mother believed some secrets were not hers to give, even when keeping them cost her. That is all I will say tonight. That is not enough. It will have to be until I can look you in the face." Celeste swallowed. Did Mom know she was in danger? The question left her before she could stop it. Adrian's gaze sharpened. Helena's breath caught on the other end of the line. That was answer enough. Celeste's knees nearly unlocked. She put one hand on the table. Adrian moved half a step, then stopped himself. Good, she did not want to need his arm. She wanted it anyway. "Morning," Helena said, voice strained. Come to the hospital in the morning, not alone. The call ended. Celeste lowered the phone. For several seconds, no one spoke. The city pressed against the restaurant windows in black reflections. Beyond the glass, Manhattan kept glittering. It did not care that Laura Monroe's death had just shifted from tragedy into possibility. Celeste looked at Adrian. My mother knew she was in danger. Yes, you suspected that. I considered it. You considered it and didn't tell me. I didn't know enough. Stop using knowledge as a shield. You didn't tell me because you knew it would make me harder to manage. Adrian's jaw flexed. Then quietly, yes. The admission struck harder than a denial would have. Celeste stared at him. Progress, she said coldly. His eyes did not leave hers. Not enough. No. Then let me earn the next inch. She should have rejected that. It was too intimate, too patient, too aware of the fact that trust was not a door swinging open, but a blade passed handle first. Instead, she said, take me to your controlled fortress, Mr. Wolfe. His mouth almost curved. Almost. As my fiancé. As your problem. This time, the smile appeared. Brief, dark, beautiful enough to be unfair. You were that before the ring. Adrian's penthouse did not look like a place where a man lived. It looked like a place where silence had been given money and a view. The private elevator opened into a foyer of black stone, bronze light, and floor-to-ceiling glass, showing the city spread below in glittering submission. There were no family photographs, no scattered books, no forgotten coat over a chair or half-drunk glass on a table. Everything was exact, controlled, expensive in a way that did not announce itself because it assumed recognition. Celeste stepped out first because Adrian let her. Two security men in dark suits stood near the far wall. Both turned their attention to her, then to Adrian. Neither looked surprised enough by the woman wearing their employer's mother's engagement ring. So they had known. Of course they had known. One was broad, blonde, and built like he regarded doorways as suggestions. The other was leaner, older, with sharp eyes and a scar cutting through one eyebrow. The older man held a tablet. Status, Adrian said. Hospital secured, the older man replied. 2 of ours outside the public entrance, 2 near the private lift, all coordinated through hospital administration under visitor safety protocol. No direct contact with Mr. Monroe's medical staff unless requested by Miss Monroe or Mrs. Vance. Celeste looked at Adrian. Mrs. Vance. My aunt, she said before he could. The older man's gaze shifted to her. Helena Vance, apologies. Interesting. He corrected quickly. He cared about precision. She liked that despite herself. Who are you? Celeste asked. The older man inclined his head. Silas Crow, Chief of Security for Mr. Wolfe. Adrian's mouth tightened at the title. Silas caught it and ignored him. The blonde man, said Evan Rusk. Celeste nodded once. I approve hospital security for tonight only. Tomorrow morning, I want names, credentials, and exact locations of anyone assigned near my father. No one enters his room without my aunt's approval or mine. Silas looked to Adrian. Celeste's spine stiffened. Adrian's voice cut through the second before it could become insult. You heard, Miss Monroe. Silas returned his attention to her. Understood. Good. Adrian had passed the first test in his own house. Not trust, but data, "And my phone?" Celeste asked. Silas held out a small evidence sleeve. "With your permission, we can clone and inspect for compromise. You keep the device in airplane mode until we clear it. We won't access personal content beyond security indicators without consent." Celeste took her phone from her clutch and did not immediately hand it over. Adrian said nothing. Silas waited. The difference between waiting and pressure was subtle. Tonight, she had become fluent in it. "You'll show me what you find?" she asked. "Yes," Silas said, "raw and summarized. No deletions, no remote wipe, no changes without my permission." "Agreed." She placed the phone into the evidence sleeve. Silas sealed it, then looked at Adrian. The envelope from Oralia. Adrian handed him the folder. Printed card, standard stock, no visible markings. Pull building footage from every entrance, service corridor, staff lift, and host stand. Quietly. Already running. Who knew about the ring? Silas glanced at Celeste. She appreciated that. Adrian did not answer. "You, me, Evan, Marin at the vault, Mr. Holt, because he drafted the personal property rider. Your jeweler, if he recognized it when it was cleaned. And the contract. Holt, his paralegal. Your office printer logs, me. Graves. No direct path yet. Find one." Silas nodded and left with Evan. The door closed behind them, sealing Celeste alone with Adrian in a penthouse suspended above Manhattan. Alone was not the right word. There were probably cameras in the hall, security in the building, people monitoring elevators and phones and threats she had not imagined when she woke that morning as a woman with too little money and too much pride. But inside the penthouse itself, the silence felt intimate. Celeste slipped the cashmere wrap from her shoulders and placed it over the back of a chair, because she needed something to do with her hands. Adrian watched the movement. Not her shoulders, the wrap. The restraint was so deliberate it became another kind of gaze. She should have felt safer for it. She did not feel safe. She felt awake. "Does anyone actually live here?" she asked. "Yes." "Are they trapped inside the walls?" "Only during business hours." Despite herself, she looked at him. There it was again, that almost humor so dry it barely counted as human, but somehow worked on him. Or perhaps she was exhausted enough to find anything charming if it did not arrive with a death threat. "You have jokes," she said. "I have 3. Use them wisely. I plan to ration them over the month." The month. The words slid between them and changed the air. For 1 month, she was engaged to Adrian Wolfe. Publicly. Legally, in the strange private way their contract made real. She wore his mother's ring. His enemies, or hers, were sending notes about dead women and forged signatures. Her father slept in a hospital room under security. Her aunt had secrets, and Milton Graves was likely preparing a board coup by morning. And Celeste was standing in Adrian's immaculate penthouse, thinking about his mouth. Shock did ugly things to a woman's priorities. Adrian removed his cufflinks and placed them on a black marble console. The small sound clicked through the room. He rolled one sleeve to his forearm, then the other. Precise. Efficient. Unaware, or pretending to be unaware, of the way her attention caught on exposed skin and strength. "Guest suite is down the hall," he said. "You can rest there. Door locks from the inside. I'll have clothes sent up in your size by morning." "Researched that too." "Yes." Of course. His eyes met hers. From public styling credits and a call to the designer who loaned the dress. Not from anything private. That should not make me feel better. But it irritates me less. I'll take less. She walked toward the glass wall overlooking the city. Below, headlights moved through avenues like blood through veins. From up here, Manhattan looked manageable, beautiful, owned. No wonder men like Adrian lived in the sky. The higher you climbed, the easier it became to mistake distance for control. My father used to bring me to the office on Saturdays, she said. When I was little, before I understood what companies were, I thought Monroe Industries was the building. The lobby, the elevators, the smell of coffee and copier toner, the way everyone said good morning like my dad had personally improved theirs. Adrian did not speak. Good if he interrupted. She might stop. He would sit me at the conference table with hot chocolate and legal pads. I drew castles. He reviewed contracts. Sometimes Mom came by after client meetings and kissed ink off his fingers because he always had pen marks on them. Celeste swallowed. I thought that was power, not money, not control. That people could build something and others could feel safe inside it. Her reflection in the glass looked pale and unfamiliar. Black dress, dark hair pinned too tightly, diamond ring, a woman staged by crisis. Milton was always there, she continued. Uncle Milton, though he wasn't family, he brought pastries, remembered birthdays, sent flowers when Mom died, sat beside Dad at the funeral. Adrian's reflection stood behind hers, several feet away. That kind of man prefers to be woven in before he pulls. She closed her eyes briefly. I should have seen it. No, you don't know that. I know predators benefit when victims blame themselves for not seeing teeth hidden behind smiles. Her eyes opened. In the glass, Adrian looked severe, controlled, but his voice had roughened on the word predators. Not abstract for him, never abstract. Is that what your father was? She asked, teeth behind smiles. No. She turned. Adrian looked at the city, not at her. My father never bothered hiding his teeth at home. The answer hit quietly. Celeste felt something in her chest twist. She thought of him as a boy. Dangerous, her aunt had said. Pitied, her mother had said. But danger in children was often just pain trained to stand guard. What about your mother? She asked. His gaze remained on the window. She hid everything. To protect you. To survive him. There was no drama in his voice. That made it worse. Celeste walked back toward the living area, needing motion, needing not to feel the urge to touch him. Not sexually, not even romantically. Something more foolish. Comfort. The kind her mother had given easily and her father received like sunlight. She stopped by the marble console instead. A framed photograph rested there, half hidden behind a sculptural bronze lamp. The only personal object she had seen. A woman stood on a windswept beach in a cream sweater, dark hair whipping across her face, one hand lifted as if to block the camera. She was laughing despite herself. Adrian's mother. Celeste did not touch the frame. She was beautiful. Yes. What was her name? Evelyn. The name changed the room. Do you miss her? Celeste asked. The question was too intimate. She knew it the second it left her mouth. Adrian did not answer quickly. Then I miss the version of her that might have existed if she'd been free. Pain moved under Celeste's ribs. That was grief, she understood. Not the grief for what had been lost, but for what had never been allowed to live. She looked back at him. He was watching her now, and there was something naked in his gaze before he shuttered it away. A loneliness so complete it made the penthouse make sense. The glass, the silence, the absence of clutter. A life built so nothing could be taken because nothing was left within reach. Except the ring. Except now her. No. Celeste looked away. "Show me the files," she said. Adrian's expression reset at once. "You should sleep." "Do I look sleepy?" "You look like you've been surviving on adrenaline and coffee for 3 days. Then the files will feel familiar." "Celeste." She turned on him. "My mother is in this now. My father is already in it. My signature has been forged. My family company is under attack, and someone sent me a note inside your building. Do not tell me to rest, because it would be more convenient for you to analyze the ugly parts while I'm tucked safely into a guest suite. I was not trying to manage you. No, I was trying to keep you from breaking." The words stopped her, not because they were soft, because they were not. They came edged with the certainty of a man who knew exactly what breaking looked like. Celeste's anger faltered just enough for exhaustion to show its face. Her feet hurt. Her scalp ached from pins. The borrowed dress felt like armor welded to her skin. The ring was a cold weight. Her father was in a hospital bed, and her dead mother had become a locked file everyone seemed to know existed except her. "I can break later," she said. Adrian's jaw tightened. Then he turned and crossed to a concealed panel near the far wall. His thumb pressed against a biometric lock. A section of black shelving slid open, revealing a private office beyond. Of course, he had a hidden room. Of course. Celeste followed him in. Unlike the penthouse, the office looked used. Dark wood desk, multiple monitors, paper files stacked in controlled disorder, a decanter untouched on a sideboard, legal pads marked in black ink. On one wall, a map of corporate entities and ownership structures had been projected onto a matte screen. Lines connecting shell companies, board members, debt instruments, and offshore. See counts. At the center, Monroe Industries. Celeste stopped, seeing her family's company reduced to nodes, and exposure lines made something inside her go quiet. Adrian stood beside the desk. "I began tracking Graves 18 months ago." She looked at him sharply. "You told me 8. I said he began acquiring pressure points in Monroe 8 months ago. I began tracking him earlier because of 2 unrelated acquisitions that collapsed under similar circumstances." No lies. That wasn't a lie. It was selective. "Yes." She waited. He exhaled through his nose, and material enough that I should have clarified. The admission did not soothe her. It did, however, keep her from leaving. "Continue." He tapped a key. The screen shifted. "Milton Graves has spent the last 2 years identifying founder-led companies with aging or ill principals, underinsured debt exposure, and sentimental board structures." Sentimental. Boards that rely on personal loyalty rather than aggressive governance. "My father trusted people." "Yes." Say that instead. Adrian's eyes moved to hers. "Your father trusted people. Graves turned that into a vulnerability." She nodded once. "It hurt less that way." He continued. "Graves builds pressure through third-party lenders, quiet share acquisition, internal confidence erosion, and reputational sabotage. Once the company enters crisis, he offers stability. By the time anyone notices the pattern, the assets are already positioned for transfer. Celeste stared at the screen, and he did this before. At least twice. One family manufacturing firm in Ohio. One medical logistics company in Boston. What happened to them? Both founders died within a year of losing control. The words landed too close. Celeste's stomach turned. From what? One stroke, one cardiac event. My father had heart surgery. Yes. The room seemed to constrict. No, she said. Adrian understood exactly what she meant. I have no evidence Graves caused your father's condition. But you looked. Yes. And nothing conclusive yet. She wrapped her arms around herself, though the room was not cold. Do you ever stop sounding like a threat? No. The answer was immediate. It pulled a humorless breath from her. Adrian's gaze moved over her face. Would you prefer I soften it? I would prefer the truth arrive with fewer knives. So would I. That almost undid her. Not enough, but almost. He turned back to the monitor. The forged board resolution was designed to force you into my protection quickly. Whoever sent it knows enough about Graves's timeline to accelerate our arrangement, and enough about my personal history to use your mother against us. Against us, she repeated. Adrian paused. Yes. The word moved through her strangely. Us. A tactical us, a temporary us, a contractually obligated us. Still, us. Who benefits from us being engaged? She asked. I do. At least you admit it. I benefit because proximity allows me to protect you and observe Graves's reactions. Wolf Capital benefits from preventing Graves from contaminating the market with another engineered collapse. You benefit because my public alignment makes the banks hesitate. And the unknown person. That's the problem. Celeste studied the map. Lines and names blurred until one caught her attention. Voss Meridian Holdings. She stepped closer. That company, Voss Meridian, I've seen it before. Adrian's head turned. Where? My father had a file, not recently, years ago. She tried to place the memory. Her father's study, a storm outside, her mother's voice low from the hallway, not argument. Fear carefully dressed as disagreement. I was maybe 17. Mom told him not to touch it. Adrian's attention sharpened so intensely it felt physical. Exact words. Celeste closed her eyes, reaching back through grief and time. Her mother in the hallway. Her father saying, Laura, if Conrad is moving money through that structure, someone has to report it. Her mother, colder than Celeste had ever heard her. Not through you, not with a daughter in this house. Celeste opened her eyes. Conrad, she whispered. Adrian went still. The room changed. My father, he asked. My mother thought your father was moving money through Voss Meridian. Adrian's face went blank, in a way that terrified her more than shock would have. He turned back to the keyboard, fingers moving fast. Screens shifted. Documents opened. Entity records, acquisition filings, old scans, offshore registries. Celeste watched his control sharpen into something nearly inhuman. Then he stopped. On the screen was a scanned document dated 11 years ago. Voss Meridian Holdings. Authorized signatory, Conrad Wolf. Beneath it, a secondary notation. External counsel copied, Laura Monroe. Celeste's hand flew to her mouth. Adrian did not move. The silence became unbearable. My mother had copies, Celeste said. Yes. And your father knew. Likely. My mother died 9 years ago. Yes. Your mother died 3 weeks before her. Yes. The timeline assembled itself like bones, laid out on a table. Evelyn Wolfe tried to leave Conrad. Laura Monroe helped her. Documents existed linking Conrad to hidden money. Evelyn died. Laura died weeks later of cancer, yes, but knowing she was in danger. Now those old structures connected to Milton Graves's current attack on Monroe Industries. Celeste shook her head. No, my mother was sick. She died because she was sick. Adrian looked at her then. His expression was careful. Too careful. Do not, she said. Do not look at me like that. We don't have enough information. But you're thinking it. I'm thinking your mother may have had something powerful enough that people are still looking for it. After 9 years, especially after 9 years, old crimes become more valuable when everyone believes the evidence is gone. Celeste backed away from the screen. The office felt too small, the air too thin. Her mother's death could not become part of this. It could not. Celeste had survived that grief by letting it be clean. Cruel, unfair, devastating, but clean. Cancer was a monster with no strategy, no motive, no board seat, no offshore account. If her mother had died with fear in her throat and secrets in her files, then the past was not past. It was only buried. And tonight, someone had started digging. I need a minute. Adrian did not follow when she left the office. She made it as far as the glass wall in the living room before her composure failed. Not dramatically. She did not sob. She did not collapse. She stood with one hand pressed to the cold glass and let the first tear fall so silently it felt like betrayal. Then another. She hated crying in borrowed diamonds. Hated crying in a billionaire's penthouse. Hated the ring on her hand and the ache in her feet, and the way Adrian Wolfe's restraint had made him the only person in the world she could safely fall apart near, because he had proven he would not touch unless invited. That thought made the next breath break. Behind her, Adrian spoke from a careful distance. I can have a driver take you to the hospital. She laughed through the tightness in her throat. To do what? Wake my father and ask if Mom died with legal evidence in a shoebox. No. Then stop offering exits that aren't exits. I don't know what to offer. The confession turned her around. Adrian stood at the edge of the living room, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, face stripped of every easy answer he had used earlier. He looked useless and furious about being useless. It should not have comforted her. It did. Neither do I, she said. His gaze moved over her wet face, and something in him visibly hurt. He stayed where he was. The distance between them became unbearable. Celeste wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. Do you always do that? What? Stand there like touching me would be a crime. His eyes darkened. No, he said. I stand here because I want to touch you, and wanting is not permission. The words went through her like heat poured into cracked glass. Her pulse changed. Not fear, not grief, not exactly desire, though desire was there, quick and bright beneath the wreckage. Need. Dangerous human need. And if I gave permission, she asked. Adrian went very still. Then I would ask what kind. Her throat tightened. He was not making this easy. That was the point. He refused to let emotion blur the shape of consent, refused to take grief and call it invitation, refused to use her trembling as a door. It made her want him more, not less. Celeste stepped away from the window. "I want you to hold me," she said. His expression changed. One clean fracture. "Are you sure?" "Yes. Only that. For now." He nodded. Then he crossed the room. He moved slowly enough that she could change her mind before he reached her. She did not. When his arms came around her, they did not cage. They gathered. One hand settled high between her shoulder blades, the other at the back of her head, fingers careful among the pins in her hair. Celeste held herself stiff for exactly 1 second. Then the day broke open inside her. She gripped his shirt and pressed her face against his chest, and Adrian Wolfe held her like the world had given him one breakable thing, and he intended to learn gentleness or die failing. He was warm through the fine cotton. Solid. His heartbeat was steady at first, then not. Beneath her ear, it shifted harder, faster, betraying what his body knew better than his face. He wanted her. He was holding still anyway. That restraint moved through her like a dark current. She breathed him in. Clean soap, wool, heat, something faintly smoky like cedar and winter air, not comfort exactly. Adrian did not smell comforting. He smelled expensive and dangerous and alive. Her fingers tightened in his shirt. His hand flexed once at her back. "You're shaking," he said. "I know. Do you want me to let go?" "No." He went quiet. The sea. Lengths wrapped around them. Below, the city moved. Above, nothing did. Celeste did not know how long they stood like that. Long enough for her tears to stop. Long enough for the grief to become something she could hold without cutting her palms open on it. Long enough for awareness to change temperature. His hand was still at the back of her head. Her body was still against his. The embrace had begun as shelter. Now, every point of contact had become information. His chest against hers, his thigh near her hip, his breath moving against her hair, the extraordinary effort in his stillness. Celeste lifted her head. Adrian looked down at her. The space between their mouths was not much. It felt like a decision with teeth. "Celeste," he said, voice rough. "Yes." That wasn't a question. It sounded like a warning. It was. "What are you warning me about?" His thumb shifted at the back of her head, not stroking, just there. Anchored, careful. "If you ask for more right now, I'll need you to be very clear that it's what you want. Not distraction, not comfort, not proof you're in control." Her pulse struck hard. "And if it is all of those things, then we wait." The answer should have frustrated her. Instead, it steadied her enough to know the truth. Celeste released his shirt with one hand and touched his jaw. His breath changed. Such a small sound, such devastating evidence. "I want to kiss you," she said, "because I want you. Because I'm angry and grieving and still thinking clearly enough to know the difference between needing comfort and choosing desire. I want your mouth on mine, Adrian, if you want that too." His eyes closed briefly. When they opened, the control in them had darkened into something much more dangerous. "I want that," he said. "Then ask me." His hand tightened at her back. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes." He did not seize. That was the first surprise. Adrian Wolfe, who bid $1 million like a verdict and negotiated corporate war, with bloodless precision. Kissed like a man stepping into a church after years of exile. Carefully at first, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other steady at her waist. His mouth brushed hers once, then paused as if he were giving her body time to answer. Celeste answered by rising onto her toes and taking the second kiss harder. That broke something. Not his restraint, never entirely, but the polished surface of it. A rough sound moved through his chest, and his mouth opened over hers with heat so controlled it felt surgical, then not controlled enough at all. He kissed her like he had been starving with impeccable manners, like every limit mattered, and every yes was a door he would worship before crossing. Celeste's hands slid to his shoulders, then into his hair. The texture startled her, softer than she expected. Human. She tugged once, not hard, just enough to test the sound it pulled from him. Adrian went still against her mouth, then low again. The check-in was simple, devastating. Celeste's body answered first, a shiver moving through her. Yes. She tugged again. His kiss deepened. Heat unfurled low in her body, startling in its force. Not gentle, not polite. A dark, molten pull that made the city vanish and the threats blur at the edges. Adrian's hand spread at her waist, fingers strong and still asking. He did not drag her closer until she stepped in herself. When she did, he accepted the contact with a sound that made her feel reckless and powerful. This was not being bought. This was not being managed. This was choosing the fire with open eyes and both hands free. Adrian turned them until her back met the cold glass. He stopped before her body touched it fully. Okay. Yes. Cold. A little. Stop. No. His mouth curved against hers, clearer. No, I don't want to stop. Good. Then he kissed her again, and the word good seemed to sink into her skin. His mouth moved to her jaw, then paused. May I? The question was breath against her skin. Celeste's fingers tightened in his hair. Yes. He kissed along her jaw with a precision that made her knees weaken. Not rushed, not performative. He learned her reactions like data that mattered, lingering when her breath caught, easing when her grip shifted, never taking more than she gave. When his mouth reached the side of her throat, he stopped again. She almost laughed from frustration. He lifted his head, too much. No, you keep stopping. Because I like hearing you tell me not to. The words were velvet over a blade. Desire flashed through her so fiercely, she forgot the next breath. Adrian watched her absorb it. More. Yes. His mouth returned to her throat. This time, his teeth grazed her skin. Not a bite, not quite. A promise with restraint wrapped around it. Celeste's entire body tightened. A sound escaped her before she could catch it. Low and unguarded, and nothing like the woman who had stood on an auction stage hours ago, turning humiliation into strategy. Adrian froze. She opened. Her eyes. His face was inches from hers, expression taut. Was that all right? The tenderness of the question nearly undid her. Yes, she said, and because he had earned the honesty, she added, I liked it. His eyes went black. Careful, he said. You wanted clear. I did. I like your teeth on me. Her pulse pounded at her own boldness, but she did not take it back. Not pain, just enough to know you're holding back. Adrian's breath left him slowly. For one glittering second, she saw the fantasy in his face. not ownership, not harm. Something more intimate and far more dangerous, being wanted for the very restraint he had built to survive himself. "You don't know what that does to me," he said. "Then tell me." His hand lifted to her face. He brushed his thumb beneath her lower lip, not entering, just tracing the place his mouth had left sensitive. "It makes me want to be very, very good," he said, "and not good at all." Her body answered that too. He felt it in the way she leaned closer. His gaze sharpened. "Celeste, I'm here. You're also exhausted. Don't ruin this by becoming sensible. I'm rarely accused of that. I accuse you." His mouth touched the corner of hers. "Then I'll defend myself badly." She smiled despite everything, and he kissed the smile as if it were the rarest thing in the room. The kiss changed again. Slower, deeper, less like impact and more like a lock finding its mechanism. Celeste felt it then, the strange nodding sense that had nothing to do with fantasy anatomy and everything to do with inevitability. Some invisible cord pulled tight between them, tension catching on tension, until every breath seemed to draw them closer to a place neither could leave unchanged. Adrian's control met her defiance and did not crush it. Her hunger met his restraint and did not shame it. The bond forming was not magic, but it felt primal anyway, two damaged creatures recognizing the shape of each other's scars in the dark. His hand slid from her waist to her hip. "Stopped. Can I touch you here?" "Yes." His fingers settled over silk. A clean, grounded contact, not obscene, not yet, but intimate enough to make her feel the contract upstairs in her mind and dismiss it. This had nothing to do with clauses, nothing to do with debt, nothing to do with rings or cameras or Milton graves. This was her body choosing. Her hand moved to his chest, then lower to the loosened knot of his tie. "Can I?" "Yes." She pulled the tie free slowly. Adrian watched her like the act was undoing more than silk. The power of that look went straight through her. She was not naive. She understood the imbalance between them in money, influence, danger. But here, in this narrow breath of time, he had given her the blade. Every step waited for her word. Every inch of him seemed leashed to her consent. Celeste let the tie fall to the floor. Then she reached for the top button of his shirt. His hand closed around her wrist. Gently. Immediately, she stopped. "Too much?" she asked. The question mirrored his. His expression shifted. "No," he said, "but I need to ask something before this goes further." The words cooled the air, not with rejection but reality. Celeste lowered her hand. "Ask. Do you want this because of me? Or because tonight took too much from you, and you need to take something back?" The question struck deep, because it was not unfair. She wanted to answer quickly. Pride demanded it. Instead, she made herself stand inside the truth, long enough to know its shape. Her mother, her father, the ring, the threats, the company, the note. And Adrian. His hands, his mouth, his terrible honesty when cornered, his refusal to use fear as permission. The boy her mother had pitied, and the man who had turned survival into a weapon, but still knew how to ask before touching her waist. "Both," she said. His hand loosened around her wrist. "Then we stop." "No." "Yes." "Adrian, if I take anything from you tonight that you regret in the morning, it will not matter that you said yes. I will have failed both of us." Anger flared, then desire, then something much worse. "Respect." Celeste hated him a little for earning it. At the exact moment, she wanted him reckless. "You don't get to decide my regret for me," she said. "No, I get to decide what kind of man I am, while you decide what kind of choice this is." The words landed hard. She stared at him. That was not refusal. Not exactly. It was a boundary, his. And because he had honored hers, she had to honor it. The realization was irritating enough to cool her blood by several degrees. "Fine," she said. His mouth twitched. That didn't sound fine. "It is a furious fine. I'll accept it." You accept everything like a man, planning to weaponize patience. Patience is rarely regretted in court. "I cannot believe I wanted to take your shirt off." "You still can." "Not tonight." "No." The room quieted. The heat did not disappear. It banked, glowed, became something more dangerous foe. Our being deferred. Celeste looked down at his hand, still around her wrist. He released her at once. She almost told him not to. Instead, she bent, picked up his tie, and placed it on the console. A truce. A postponement. A promise neither of them was foolish enough to name. Adrian looked at the tie, then at her. "Guest suite." "Yes." "Do you want me to walk you there?" She considered saying no. Saying no would be cleaner, stronger, less complicated. "Yes," she said. He did not look victorious. That helped. The guest suite was down a corridor lined with dark art and softer lighting. Adrian opened the door and stepped back without entering. Celeste peered inside. It was larger than her apartment bedroom. Of course. A king bed dressed in white linen. A sitting area. A bathroom glowing faintly with marble and warm brass. On a chair near the wardrobe, someone had placed folded clothes, soft black lounge pants, a cream sweater, socks still wrapped in tissue. She looked at him, already. Marin is efficient. Marin from the vault. And household logistics. Does Marin know I exist? She knows everyone exists before they're needed. That is ominous. She prefers indispensable. Celeste stepped into the room, then turned back. Adrian remained in the hall, one hand on the doorframe, the other at his side. He looked almost too large for the quiet corridor, too dark for the warm light spilling from the guest room. She should have said good night. Instead, she said, "I don't regret kissing you." His gaze sharpened. "Noted," he said. "Do not make that sound like a meeting memo. It's the safest option available to me." A smile threatened her mouth. She suppressed it poorly. Adrian saw. His expression warmed by a fraction, and that fraction was enough to make the corridor feel intimate again. "Lock the door," he said. "The panel by the bed controls it. No one can override from outside except emergency security, and that requires a two-person authorization. Can you override it?" "No." She believed him. That was new. "Good night, Adrian." His gaze held hers for a second too long. "Good night, Celeste." She closed the door before she could invite him inside and test both of their principles. The lock engaged with a soft click. Celeste leaned back against the door and closed her eyes. Her lips still felt like his mouth. Her throat still remembered his teeth. Her body still hummed with unfinished want, frustration, grief, and the strange steadiness of having been denied by a man who desired her enough to make denial cost him. That was dangerous, not because he was cruel, because he might not be. Cruelty would have made everything easier. She showered in water hot enough to turn her skin pink. She removed the pins from her hair one by one until they scattered across the marble counter like tiny black bones. She stared at the ring before she slept, and again, after she woke 3 hours later to dawn pressing pale light against unfamiliar curtains. For one disoriented moment, she did not know where she was. Then everything returned. The auction, the bid, the contract, the kiss, her mother, Voss Meridian, the forged signature, the note. Now ask him what he did the night your mother died. Celeste sat up. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Her borrowed clothes from the night before were gone, replaced by a garment bag hanging from the wardrobe and fresh coffee on the sitting room table. Beside it sat a sealed envelope. Her name again. Not in the same handwriting. This one was precise, printed, and marked with Adrian's initials. She opened it. Inside was a short note. I am in the office. Your phone scan finished at 5:40 a.m. It contains spyware installed through a calendar invitation sent from a Monroe Industries internal address 9 days ago. Do not react until we know whose credentials were used. Breakfast is outside when you're ready. A.W. Beneath the note was a tablet. Celeste picked it up. The screen woke to a dashboard of files, messages, and security reports. At the top was a folder labeled Monroe Internal Disclosure, CELESTE Access. Her pulse steadied. Good. He had given her access without making her ask. She opened the folder. Documents populated the screen in clean rows. Debt holdings, board communications, shell company structures, share transfers, hospital visitor logs, redacted notes from his source inside Monroe Industries. A timeline of Milton Graves's involvement. Then another folder caught her eye. Recovered share routing. Celeste tapped it. A spreadsheet opened, dense with transaction history. She scanned dates, entity names, voting blocks, instruments she recognized, and several she did not. Her father had insisted she learn corporate structure before she learned gala seating. Thank God for that now. Halfway down the sheet, she stopped. Preferred voting shares had been routed through a trust connected to her mother's estate. No, not estate. Archive holding account. Celeste's skin prickled. She enlarged the row. The account had been dormant for years. Then, 3 weeks ago, someone had attempted to access it. The attempt failed, but the access request triggered an internal review. That review had flagged a dormant voting provision tied to Laura Monroe's legal archives. Celeste's hand tightened around the tablet. The deciding vote. Her deciding vote. Not through her father. Through her mother. The door chimed softly. Celeste froze. A voice came through the panel. Adrian's, low and controlled. Celeste, it's me. May I come in? She looked at the tablet. At the transaction date. At the notes. At the line showing when Adrian Wolfe had first requested a full mapping of Monroe voting rights. 3 weeks ago. Before the auction. Before the contract. Before he had told her anything. Her heart began to pound. You knew, she said. Silence outside the door. Then, through the panel, Adrian's voice. Yes. The words split the morning open. Celeste stood slowly, tablet in hand, wearing his ring and another woman's secrets. You knew my mother's archives, gave me the deciding vote before you bid on me. Another pause. Yes. Her fingers went cold. Every kiss, every careful question, every moment of restraint remained real. And so did this. She walked to the door, but did not unlock it. On the other side, Adrian said nothing. Good. Let him stand there, with the truth between them. Celeste looked at the screen again, at the proof that her mother had left behind power disguised as paper, and that Adrian Wolfe had known, before he ever placed $1 million bid under a chandelier full of watching predators. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. Then breakfast is going to be very unpleasant. Chapter 4. The Lie Beneath the Ring. Breakfast was not unpleasant. Breakfast was war with coffee service. Celeste stood barefoot on the heated marble of Adrian Wolfe's guest suite with a tablet in one hand, his mother's ring on hers, and the locked door between them like the last civilized line in a city that had stopped pretending civilization meant anything. On the other side, Adrian did not knock again. He did not use that controlled voice to coax or command. He simply waited, which was either respect or strategy. And Celeste had lost patience with the exhausting possibility that it was always both. You knew, she said again, not because she needed confirmation, but because some truths deserved to be made to stand in the room and bleed. Yes, Adrian said through the door. The single syllable was steady. Of course it was. Adrian Wolfe could probably confess to murder in the tone other men used to order black coffee. Celeste looked down at the tablet. The screen had dimmed, but not enough to hide the row that had burned itself into her skull. Laura Monroe Archive voting provision. Dormant preferred shares. Proxy activation restricted to direct air. Attempted access 3 weeks ago. Wolf review initiated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. Before the Sterling charity auction. Before the $1 million bid. Before he placed his mother's ring on her finger and asked if touching her hand was okay, with a restraint that had made her feel safe enough to want things she should not have wanted. Before he kissed her like patience was a vow. Before she started believing the parts of him that looked like damage instead of design. You knew my mother's archives gave me the deciding vote, she said. Yes, and you let me think this engagement was about protecting my father's company from Milton Graves. It is. No, the word came out sharp enough to cut. That is the problem with you. Everything is technically true until it matters. Silence. Then you're right. The agreement struck her harder than a defense would have. Celeste laughed, but the sound was hollow. Stop doing that. Doing what? Being honest after the lie has already served its purpose. That landed. She heard it in the silence that followed, in the faint shift of his body beyond the door, in the fact that when he spoke again, his voice had lost the polished edge. I should have told you last night. Yes, I didn't because I thought you would refuse the agreement if you knew you were the deciding vote. Her grip tightened around the tablet. I would have. I know. So you let me sign without all the information. Yes. The room seemed to narrow. Clause 12 burned in her mind with cruel elegance. No lies. Any material omission that affects consent, safety, finances, family, or public reputation constitutes a lie. Her clause, his signature, their first broken vow, and the engagement was not even 12 hours old. Celeste set the tablet down on the small table beside the untouched coffee. Carefully, too carefully, Her hands wanted violence, and she refused to give a piece of expensive technology the satisfaction. "Back away from the door," she said. A pause, then a soft step. Another. She touched the control panel. The lock released. When she opened the door, Adrian stood several feet back in the corridor, exactly where she had told him to be. It made her hate him more. He had showered. His hair was damp, combed back from his face with a few dark strands already rebelling. He wore charcoal trousers and a white dress shirt open at the throat, sleeves rolled to his forearms. No jacket, no tie, nothing between him and the morning except discipline and guilt. He looked tired, not the kind of tired money could conceal. Something deeper. His eyes were shadowed, his jaw set too hard, his control tightened past the point of comfort. Good. Let him hurt. Celeste stepped into the hallway. She wore the black lounge pants and cream sweater someone had left for her, her hair still loose from the shower, her face bare. There was no armor to borrow this morning. No diamonds except the one on her finger. No ballroom lighting. No public stage. Only the ring. Only the lie. Adrian looked at it. She saw him do it. That flicker of pain, immediate and involuntary, when his gaze dropped to his mother's diamond on her hand. The sight might have moved her last night. It had moved her last night. This morning, it was evidence. "Why did you bring the ring?" she asked, "if you already knew about the voting shares?" He did not look away from her. "Because the public engagement gave us a reason for proximity." "You mean access?" "Yes." "To me?" "Yes." "To my mother's legal archive." His expression tightened. "I believed the archive might contain evidence against Graves." "Against Graves or against your father?" "Both." There it was, the second blade under the first. Celeste walked past him toward the main room. If she stayed in the corridor, she would feel cornered. Adrian did not follow until she was well ahead of him. He had learned quickly, or maybe he had always known how to look harmless when standing near an exit. The penthouse had changed in daylight. Last night it had been a fortress of glass and shadow, all black stone and city lights. Morning made it worse. It revealed the precision, the spotless surfaces, the absence of ordinary life. No newspaper folded on the counter, no abandoned mug, no book left face down on a chair. The place did not wake because it had never slept. Breakfast waited on the dining table. Coffee, fruit, toast, eggs under silver domes, a pot of tea, a small vase of white tulips that looked as if they had been selected by a person who thought beauty should stand at attention. Celeste stopped at the head of the table and looked at the tulips. "Marin," she asked. "Yes." "Tell Marin I dislike flowers arranged like hostages." "A beat." "I'll pass that along." She almost smiled. "Almost." That made the anger worse. Adrian remained several feet away. "Celeste." "No." "You don't know what I'm going to say." "Yes, I do. You're going to explain in that surgical way of yours. You're going to lay out the timeline and the risk assessment, and the reasons why withholding the voting provision seemed necessary. You will make it all sound almost moral." His mouth tightened. "Am I wrong?" she asked. "No." "Then don't." He lowered his gaze for half a second. The gesture was not submission. Adrian did not have submission in him. It was acknowledgement. The kind one dangerous person gave another when a shot landed clean. Celeste turned to the table, lifted a coffee cup, and took a drink. It was excellent. Of course it was excellent. If Adrian ever served bad coffee, the markets would tremble. "You broke the contract," she said. "Yes." Before the ink dried. "Yes." "My clause." "Yes." "My consent." His eyes lifted sharply. "No." Celeste set the cup down so hard coffee trembled at the rim. "Careful. I did not manipulate you sexually. No, you were immaculate about touch." Her voice went cold. "You were so careful with my body that I forgot to watch what you were doing with the rest of me." The words struck him. Actually struck him. She saw it in the way his breathing changed. Once, almost imperceptibly. "Good. Do not use the fact that you asked before kissing me as proof you respected my choices," she said. "Consent is not only about hands and mouths. You let me agree to a public engagement while hiding the most important reason you needed it." Adrian stood very still. When he spoke, his voice was low. "You're right." The anger inside her flared white. "Say something else." "I wanted access to the archive." "Better." "I wanted to know whether your mother kept evidence that could connect my father's old accounts to Graves's current network." "Better." "I believed if I told you the deciding vote came through your mother's estate, you would refuse me out of anger, grief, and distrust. And you decided those were bad reasons." "No," his jaw clenched. "I decided they were reasons I couldn't afford." There it was. The ugliest truth yet. Not romantic, not noble, not a protector making hard choices for the woman he secretly respected. A man calculating risk. Celeste nodded once. "Thank you." "For what?" "For Finn. Ally sounding like yourself." His face hardened, but not at her. At himself, perhaps. She did not care enough to make the distinction. The private elevator chimed. Both of them turned. Sela's crow entered carrying a slim folder and a tablet, then stopped at the sight of them. His sharp gaze moved from Celeste to Adrian, measured the air, and decided, correctly, that everyone's still breathing was a temporary mercy. "I can return," Sela said. "No," Celeste said before Adrian could answer. "You can stay. I want the morning disclosure." Sela's looked to Adrian. Adrian's expression did not change. "Give it to Miss Monroe." Sela's crossed the room and handed Celeste the folder and tablet directly. "Your phone scan confirmed spyware installed via an internal calendar invite from Monroe Industries. The sender credentials belong to Diana Kells, executive assistant to Milton Graves. We do not yet know whether she sent it knowingly or whether her account was compromised. Diana has worked for him for 12 years, Celeste said. Yes, that means knowingly. Likely, Sela said, not proven. Celeste appreciated the distinction despite herself. Hospital credential. Former private nurse, Jonna Whitcomb. Her expired credential was used at 8:42 p.m. last night. She was terminated 7 months ago after a medication discrepancy investigation. Her stomach tightened. Medication discrepancy. Silas's gaze flicked to Adrian. Celeste's temper snapped. Look at me when the information concerns my father. Silas did. Yes, he said. There were missing sedatives in the unit where she previously worked. No charges filed. Internal termination only. Where is she now? Unknown, we're locating her. Celeste looked at Adrian. Did you know this before I came here last night? No. Silas confirmed with a small shake of his head. We got the termination file at 4:10 a.m. All right. Celeste forced herself to breathe evenly. The forged resolution. Silas tapped his tablet. Delivered to your phone from a masked number routed through a temporary server. The document metadata indicates it was created on a machine registered to a Monroe Industries legal department device. Celeste went cold. Who in legal? Assigned to Arthur Penn. General counsel, she said. Yes. Arthur Penn had worked with her father for 15 years. Calm, mild, bow-tied Arthur, who sent holiday tins of shortbread and always remembered she hated being called young lady. No more sentimental board structures. No more trusted names. No more soft places for knives to hide. Is Arthur in Milton's pocket? She asked. Silas said, we don't know. Adrian said, he's afraid of something. Celeste looked at him. Adrian continued. Penn has been delaying document production for 3 weeks. Not refusing, delaying. That usually means he's either compromised or trying to survive long enough to choose a side. You knew that too. Yes. Was that before or after you discovered my voting rights? His face closed slightly. Before. And you didn't tell me. No. The room tightened again. Silas looked like he would rather walk into gunfire than remain between them. Sensible man. Celeste opened the folder and scanned the first pages. Phone scan summary. Hospital access log. Board resolution metadata. Share routing. A redacted message chain with Milton's name appearing like mold through expensive wallpaper. At the back was a single-page summary titled Recommended Immediate Action. She read the first line. Public confirmation of engagement before 12:00 p.m. Recommended to stabilize narrative and deter emergency board vote. Celeste laughed. Silas wisely said nothing. Adrian did not move. Of course, she said. Of course the solution to your lie is a press release. It is one possible action, Adrian said. No, it is your preferred action. Yes, because it benefits you. It benefits us. She looked at him over the folder. Do not use that word until you earn it back. Adrian's mouth shut. The silence afterward was excellent. Celeste turned back to Silas. I want the source name. Silas paused. Adrian's gaze sharpened. Celeste did not look at him. Adrian promised it as part of the morning disclosure. He has already broken one material obligation. I advise against making it two. Silas looked at Adrian. Adrian said, tell her. Silas nodded once. Lydia Shaw. Celeste blinked. That was not the name she expected. Lydia Shaw, she repeated. Yes. The board-adjacent dinner hostess. Society patron. Former Monroe Industries board member, her father's old friend. A woman with a laugh like crystal and a memory like a ledger. She's your source. Not mine, Adrian said. Silas S. Silas gave him a dry look. Not relevant. Celeste looked between them. Explain. Silas clasped his hands behind his back. Mrs. Shaw contacted me indirectly 8 days ago. She believed Graves was accelerating a board motion, but feared using Monroe channels. She provided enough information for us to verify the emergency resolution was being prepared. She did not know your signature had been forged until this morning. Why contact you? Silas's expression did not shift, but something careful entered it. Because I worked private security for your mother during the final year of her life. The world went silent. Celeste stared at him. Adrian turned his head sharply. Sela's. So Adrian had not known. Good, let him be surprised too. Sela's did not look away from Celeste. Mrs. Monroe retained outside protection quietly, through a firm I worked for before Wolf Capital. Celeste's throat closed. My mother had security. Yes. When she was sick. Yes. Why? Sela's face gave nothing away. She received threats. The room tilted. Celeste gripped the back of a chair. Adrian moved instinctively, then stopped himself before he touched her. She saw the aborted motion. Hated that she saw it. Hated that part of her wanted the touch anyway. What kind of threats? She asked. Messages, surveillance, an attempted break-in at your family home while you and your father were away. A car that followed her from a medical appointment. Celeste's vision blurred at the edges. Her mother had been dying and frightened, and still managed to make Celeste feel safe. Still smiled. Still asked about school. Still worried that hospital coffee was turning her father into a worse person. Did my father know? I don't know, Sela said. Did I? No. Of course not. Of course her mother had kept the monster outside the door and called it weather. Celeste looked at Adrian. Did you know Sela's worked for my mother? No. That answer, at least, she believed. The surprise was still there beneath his control. Sela said, Mrs. Shaw knew, because she helped arrange payment when Mrs. Monroe no longer wanted the invoices passing through her own accounts. Lydia paid for my mother's security. Temporarily. Why would she never tell me? Probably because Mrs. Monroe asked her not to. That sounded like her mother. It hurt enough to make Celeste want to sit down, so she remained standing. What does this have to do with the dinner tonight? She asked. Mrs. Shaw believes Graves will make his move there, Sela said. The dinner guest list includes 2 current board members, Arthur Penn, 3 creditors, and a political contact connected to a regulatory office. It is not a social dinner. It is a pressure room. Adrian added, if we attend as an engaged couple, we force Graves to adapt in public. If we do, he proceeds with the narrative that you signed the emergency resolution and are cooperating with a leadership transition. Celeste's fingers tightened around the folder until the edge cut into her skin. There it was again. No clean options. Only burning hallways and exits that led into darker rooms. She looked at Sela's. Leave us. Sela's nodded. At the elevator, he paused. Miss Monroe. Yes. Your mother was kind to people who were used to being treated as furniture. His scarred brow tightened slightly. She was also very aware of danger. If she hid something, she hid it well. The elevator doors closed behind him. Celeste stood still. Then she threw the folder at Adrian. Not at his head. She had restraint at his chest. He caught it. Of course he caught it. I am so tired, she said, of inheriting secrets from dead women and strategies from living men. Adrian set the folder on the table. I know. No, you don't. You're right, I don't. And stop being agreeable. His eyes flashed. What do you want from me? The question broke through the polished restraint at last. Not loud. Adrian did not need volume, but sharp, raw enough to show the bone beneath. Celeste turned on him. Truth before utility. His jaw tightened. I want you to tell me something before it becomes useful to you, she said. I want one fact not dragged out by a threat, a note, a forged document, or a woman standing behind a locked door. Can you do that? He stared at her. For a moment, she thought he would say yes, and then give her another measured piece of the puzzle, something selected for minimum damage. Instead, he said, I wanted the archive because I believe my father murdered my mother. The words struck the room flat. Celeste went cold all over. Adrian's face had gone still again, but this time the stillness did not look like control. It looked like a man stepping onto a frozen lake because drowning had become preferable to staying on shore. My mother's death was ruled an accidental overdose, he continued. Sedatives, alcohol, a woman too fragile for the world, according to my father's statement. The press swallowed it because grief photographs well when the estate is large enough. Celeste could not move. I was supposed to believe she broke, he said. I did for a while. It was convenient to hate her for leaving me with him by choice. Then I found the letter. She had planned to leave. She had legal help. She had evidence. And THR. Weeks later, she was dead. And my mother. Your mother knew enough to help her, maybe enough to prove it. His voice lowered. Then your mother died before I could ask. Celeste wrapped her arms around herself. There was no air in the penthouse. None. Cancer killed my mother, she said. I know. Say it. Cancer killed your mother. But I don't know who threatened her while she was dying. I don't know what files she hid. I don't know why Graves's network is connected to my father's old money structures. And I don't know who is trying to force us together now. The honesty should have felt better. It felt like standing in front of a door, opening onto a basement she had lived above her whole life. Celeste looked at Adrian's hand. The folder had left a pale line across his fingers where he caught it. Small damage, ridiculous to notice. What else? She asked. He went silent. Her laugh was tired. There is always something else with you. Yes. Then say it. He looked at her for a long moment. I began looking at you before I knew about the voting shares. Her pulse changed. Define looking. Public records, interviews, your role at Monroe, your mother's estate filings, your father's medical leave. That sounds like research. It started that way. Celeste's breath shortened. Adrian's voice roughened. I watched your speech at the Children's Fund luncheon 3 months ago. You spoke for 6 minutes about donor fatigue and made a room full of tax-avoidant hypocrites increase their pledges by 30% because you refused to flatter them. You were furious, polite but furious. I watched it 4 times. Heat moved through her, unwanted and undeniable. Why? Because you made restraint look like a blade. There it was again, that dangerous, precise way he saw her. She hated how much she wanted it. And then, she asked, then I found out your father was vulnerable. Then Graves moved. Then I found the archive voting provision. Then I told myself proximity was strategy. Told yourself. His gaze held hers. Yes. The room changed. Not softened. Never that. But the anger between them gained another current, dark and electric. Celeste should have stepped back. She did not. You are not allowed to make obsession sound like admiration. I'm not trying to. No, what would you call watching a speech 4 times? Recognition. The word moved under her skin. Dangerous. Too intimate. She lifted her chin. And the ring. His expression shuddered slightly. The ring was strategy. Try again. It was leverage. Again. His jaw worked. Celeste waited. Finally, Adrian said, "It was the only thing I owned that I had never allowed the market to touch." The anger inside her did not vanish. It opened, just enough for pain to move through. "I brought it because if the engagement had to be a lie," he said, voice low, "I wanted one true thing inside it." Celeste closed her eyes. That was crueler than manipulation. Not because it was false, but because she believed him. Adrian Wolfe had lied by omission. He had used her desperation. He had studied her, planned for her, walked into a ballroom with a ring and a strategy. He had also given her his mother's ring not to fake intimacy, but because some damaged part of him needed the lie to carry a relic of the truth. He was not a villain. He was worse. He was a wounded man with a conscience, which meant she could not dismiss what he had done as easily as she wanted to. She opened her eyes. "You broke the contract." "Yes. Under its terms, I can terminate." "Yes. Do you want me to?" The question seemed to stop him. For once, Adrian Wolfe did not have an immediate answer. Good. Let him stand where she had stood, on the edge of a choice that was not clean. "No," he said finally. The word was quiet. "Honest." "Why?" "Because Graves moves tonight. Because your father is exposed. Because your mother's archive may be the only piece strong enough to end this. Because I can help." All useful reasons. His eyes held hers. "And because if you walk out of here hating me, I will deserve it," he said. "But I will still want you safe." The heat between them returned in a slow, vicious wave. Not soft, not forgiving. Want in the middle of rage was an ugly thing. It had teeth. It knew too much. It made every boundary brighter instead of weaker. Celeste walked to him. Adrian did not move. She stopped close enough to see the pulse at his throat. "Do not mistake this for forgiveness," she said. "I won't." "Do not mistake staying for trust." "No." "Do not mistake wanting you for either." His breath changed. "There." She felt it like a match struck in a dark room. "Celeste," he said. Another warning, another attempt at control. She was tired of both. She reached for his shirt and gripped the open edges near his chest. "I am furious with you." "I know." "I should take off this ring." "Yes." "I should walk into Lydia Shaw's dinner alone and burn every man who thought I was easier to ma. Newer than my father. You may still do that." His voice had roughened. Her fingers tightened in the fabric. "But if I do it beside you, you follow my lead." "Yes." "If I tell you to stop speaking, you stop." "Yes." "If I tell you to burn the room, you hand me the match." His eyes darkened. "I hand you the match and block the exits." A shiver moved through her. His gaze sharpened, not literal exits. Despite herself, a breath of laughter escaped. "Thank you for clarifying before you became a felony. I'm trying to be precise. You're trying not to touch me." "Yes." "Why?" "Because you're angry. I was angry last night. And I stopped last night. You stopped because you thought I might regret it." "Yes." "And now?" His gaze dropped to her mouth, then returned with visible effort. "Now, I think you might be trying to punish both of us." She smiled without warmth. "Maybe I am. Then I won't participate." The words should have cooled her. Instead, they broke something open. Not desire. That was already there, coiled and dangerous. Respect again, infuriating and inconvenient. He was still denying himself the easy path, still refusing to let fury become consent by accident, still forcing her to stand inside her own desire until she knew what shape it had. Celeste released his shirt. Fine. His mouth twitched. You're furious fine again. No, my legally sound fine. Worse. Yes. She stepped back, breathing harder than the moment justified. We need new terms. His gaze sharpened at once. For the contract. For everything. Adrian gestured toward the table. Then name them. Celeste looked at the breakfast, the folder, the tablet, the hideous hostage tulips. Then she sat. Adrian remained standing. Sit, she said. He sat. Power did not shift all at once. It moved in increments. A word obeyed, a door not blocked, a truth given before it could be dragged out. It was not enough. It was a beginning. I'm not terminating yet, she said. His face revealed nothing. His hand, however, curled once on the table before relaxing. Interesting. Yet, she repeated, I heard you. I will attend Lydia Shaw's dinner as your fiancé. Publicly. We confirm the engagement before noon, but the announcement comes from me. Yes. It will not say you rescued me. No. It will not mention debt. No. It will say we are aligned on protecting Monroe Industries from predatory interference. That may provoke graves. Good. Adrian's eyes warmed by a fraction. Not tenderness, approval. He tried to hide it. She saw. Do not look proud of me, she said. I'll look elsewhere. You'll fail. Likely. She hated him, not enough. She continued. You will provide me unrestricted access to every file concerning Monroe Industries, Milton Graves, Voss Meridian, my mother, and your father. Some files include third-party identities that could endanger people. Then redact names only, with a written explanation of what was redacted and why. No silent omissions. He considered, agreed. I meet Lydia Shaw before the dinner. Yes. I decide how we use my voting rights. Yes. No more ring as theater. His gaze lowered to her hand. What does that mean? He asked. It means no touching it for cameras. No staged hand kisses. No possessive public gestures unless I initiate or approve them. Yes. And if anyone asks for a wedding date, you do not answer. What should I say? That I'm impossible to rush. A faint smile, true. She ignored the warmth that tried to rise. And personally, his expression changed. Barely, but the room felt suddenly smaller. Personally, she said, keeping her voice steady, what happened last night stays separate from the contract. Yes. If I kiss you again, it is because I choose it. Yes. If you kiss me, you ask unless I make it unmistakably clear I want you to. Yes. If either of us is too angry, too scared, too grief-struck, or too strategic to know the difference, we stop. Yes. She leaned back. You agree very quickly for a man who wants me. Adrian's gaze locked on hers. Wanting you is the reason I agree quickly. The answer slid down her spine. She looked away first and reached for her coffee, because caffeine was safer than Adrian Wolfe being emotionally competent in the middle of a betrayal. He gave her 3 seconds. Then my terms. Her eyebrows lifted. You think you get terms? Yes. Brave. Necessary. He folded his hands on the table. You do not go anywhere alone while threats are active. No. Celeste. No blanket restrictions. Try again. His jaw flexed. You notify security before movement outside controlled locations. Better. You use a clean phone. Yes. You do not confront Graves privately. She paused. Adrian noticed. Celeste, I heard you. And I dislike being predictable. You promised truth before utility. Here is truth before utility. If Graves gets you alone, he will not threaten like he did on the terrace. He will escalate. A chill moved through her. You think he would hurt me. I think men who have built their lives on hidden coercion rarely stop at reputation. The bluntness hit hard. She looked at the folder, at her father's hospital log, at Jonna Whitcomb's name. All right, she said quietly. I do not confront Milton privately. Adrian exhaled once. A controlled release, almost invisible. Almost. But, she added, if he confronts me, I handle him. With me present, with witnesses present, you may be one of them. His mouth tightened. Agreed. Good. The negotiation continued for another hour. Marin sent new flowers halfway through. Not tulips this time. A loose arrangement of dark red ranunculus in a low ceramic bowl, wild enough to look alive. Celeste stared at them. Adrian said, better. Tell Marin she has been upgraded from ominous to tolerable. I'll phrase it more diplomatically. Don't. His almost smile returned. They drafted the engagement announcement on Adrian's secure tablet. Celeste rejected 3 versions for sounding like corporate surrender, and 1 for making Adrian sound less terrifying than he was. In the end, the language was clean and brutal. Celeste Monroe and Adrian Wolfe confirmed their private engagement following last night's sterling charity auction. Ms. Monroe remains actively involved in Monroe Industries and is committed to protecting the company's legacy, employees, and stakeholders. Mr. Wolfe supports Ms. Monroe's efforts to identify and prevent predatory interference against the company and the Monroe family. They ask for privacy while they address ongoing business matters. Adrian read it once. Predatory interference is aggressive. So am I. Yes, he said, and the word had heat under it. She pretended not to hear. He did not pretend not to mean it. By late morning, the announcement had gone out through Celeste's email to a trusted journalist who had once profiled her mother's legal work and still owed Helena a favor. Within 15 minutes, the story appeared online. By 20, the board began calling. By 23, Milton Graves sent his first message. Celeste's new clean phone lit, with a forwarded screenshot from Sela's. Tell Celeste she has made a regrettable mistake. She looked at it, then at Adrian. He sounds upset. He expected fear. He got irritation. He'll adapt. So will I. Adrian watched her for a moment too long. What? She asked. You look more like your mother than you did last night. The words were soft enough to hurt. Celeste swallowed. You didn't know my mother. No, but Silas described her once, years ago. I didn't know who he meant then. What did he say? Adrian's expression changed, memory moving through it. He said she was the kind of woman who could make powerful men ashamed of being small. Celeste looked away. The grief rose fast and sharp, but this time it did not drown her. It stood beside her, a familiar ghost with new weapons. "My mother knew she was in danger," Celeste said. "Yes. She hid it from me. Yes. I hate that. I know. I understand it. Yes. I hate that too." Adrian said nothing. That was, annoyingly, the right answer. Her clean phone rang. "Helena Vance." Celeste answered immediately. "Aunt Helena." "I saw the announcement," Helena said. "I assume you have thoughts." "Several impolite ones. I inherited that from you. You inherited timing from your mother, and bad judgment from your father." Celeste almost smiled. "Good morning to you too. Are you with Wolf?" "Yes." "Put me on speaker." Celeste did. Helena's voice filled the room, elegant and sharp. "Adrian Wolf." "Mrs. Vance." "Do not Mrs. Vance me. I changed your bandages once when you were 15, and too proud to admit Conrad had split your lip." The room froze. Celeste's eyes snapped to Adrian. He had gone completely still. Helena continued, mercilessly calm. "You may call me Helena, and you may stop pretending everyone alive knows less than you." Adrian's face gave nothing away, but Celeste saw the line of his jaw tighten. "You knew him," Celeste said. Helena sighed softly. "Darling, half the city knew Conrad Wolf was a monster. The other half invested with him. And Adrian. I knew a boy who came to my sister's office, once with blood on his shirt cuff, and told her he had fallen." Celeste could not look away from him. Adrian's gaze had lowered to the table. "Why didn't Mom tell me?" Celeste asked. "Because you were 17, and your mother was trying to keep the worst of the world from getting its fingerprints on you before it had to. And now the world has terrible manners." A pause. "Come to the hospital. There are things you need to see." Adrian lifted his head. "Is Robert stable?" "He is awake, irritated, and demanding to know why 2 enormous men in suits are guarding the hallway like he's a head of state." Celeste's heart clenched. "You told him." "I told him enough to keep him from discharging himself out of spite."